I think I would consider finishing it if it was a better Pokemon game.
We'll pick another Pokemon game.
Okay.
I know how much you'll enjoy that.
Mediate 2, yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, good.
If we ever get to Mediate 2.
Oh, we'll get there. I think we're finally putting our shit together now.
Yeah. Hello. This is the films of 2019, even though we're like 3 months into 2020.
Yeah.
Right. It has taken a while.
It has. Well, we kept putting it off because I think you really wanted me to watch Sorry We Missed You. And so, because we were going to record this, in December of last year? Or November, maybe even?
Nah, it would definitely be January. It'd be around that time.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
We just have kept putting it off.
So it was definitely Sorry We Missed You that you wanted me to watch. Then I didn't.
It's not even in my top 5 as well. Yeah, and it's not in your top 5. So the format of this is going to be that me and Ethan have done our top 5 films of the year, which coincidentally, we've both seen each other's top 5s, and there is no overlap.
Yeah. That doesn't happen often, does it? I feel like the year before and the year before that, there were a couple of films that we hadn't. I think you always saw all the films on my list, but it wasn't the same case the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just a coincidence how it worked out. But I think we'll just, the first section of this podcast is things we missed last time / honourable mentions, which is just because it's obviously been a year. We didn't see everything that came out last year. There's a couple of things we missed, primarily Roma, which I think was my number 2 or 3 film at the time, and it still is now. And you were like halfway through. And if you'd seen Roma, it definitely would have been our top film of the year.
Yeah, definitely, because it got better as the film went on as well. I think I maybe watched an hour and a half of it, and then I watched the last hour. And the last hour is when you have her going into labour, and then there's that great scene at the end where she has to save the 2 kids from the from drowning as well. And there's like the best parts. Oh, I've completely forgotten the scene, of course, where there's the riot happening out in that one shot as well. So basically, all the best parts of the film I hadn't seen at that point. I had to watch them to really appreciate it.
But yeah, so that probably would have been our number 1.
Yeah, that's like a top 10 of the decade kind of film.
Yeah. Because it was, what was it? It was 3 Billboards was our number 1.
Yeah, I think so.
Even though that's gone like way down in my estimation. So
yeah, me too.
So, yeah. Me too. Also, the other one that definitely would have got in if you'd seen it. I mean, you still haven't seen A Star Is Born, and you still haven't seen They Should Not Grow, which are both in my top 10. But you did see Widows.
Yeah, that's true. Widows was really good. Glad that I finally got all around to watching it, because I do like Steve McQueen. I think when it comes to kind of, I guess, directors who make more mainstream films, he's definitely up there as one of the ones whose films I really, really enjoy watching. I saw, I think, one of his older films. I don't know if it's his first, but Hunger, starring Michael Fassbender, who plays an IRA, a member of the IRA, and you kind of look at the conditions of the prisons where they were being kept, the members of that organisation when they were caught. And I've not seen Shame. I would quite like to get around to that at some point. So He Is a Slave is pretty good, but Widows was definitely a really, really entertaining. I think it's over 2 hours as well. It just didn't feel like it one bit. Yeah, really went by quite quickly.
Because I did like Widows. I think my one, because it's adapted from a TV miniseries. I feel like it might have worked better as a miniseries, just more time to explore the characters.
I think that's possibly true, actually, because it's over 2 hours, but there are a lot of characters in that film. And there's a lot of, like, I guess, kind of intersecting storylines. Because you got, I guess, the main 3, because it's 4 women, isn't it? Because they had, I think, one of their babysitters, right? So, so you got that, and then you also got the political campaign between Colin Farrell and Paperboy.
Brian Tyree Henry.
Yeah. We didn't get enough screen time with Daniel Kaluuya either, even though he's still in the film quite a fair amount, which goes to say how good he was in that film.
He really was.
Yeah,
because you only really get a couple of characters. You get Viola Davis and Elizabeth Debicki. I think you get a lot from them, and then pretty much everyone else is like you feel like you could.
I think even Michelle Rodriguez, she kind of gets stepped on a little bit as well.
Could have had a few more scenes with her.
Yeah, because she does have some interesting parts as well. There's also the plot twist. I don't know if we should talk about it.
Maybe not.
Yeah. But I don't know how I felt about that plot Breakfast, and I still don't know how I feel about it today.
I mean, I didn't see it coming. I can tell you that much.
Same here, but
I remember it in the cinema. Just being like, yeah. So yeah, it's probably worth mentioning that we'll try and keep things. We won't worry about spoilers like when we actually get into it, but we'll keep things spoiler free now. And finally, you'll be able to go in the description of the video. There'll be time codes. You can jump around.
But when we talk to when we come to your third favourite film, would we talk about spoilers for that?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about spoilers for all the films. But
Okay.
what we'll do is we'll put time codes in, so if someone hasn't seen the films, they can just skip the ones they haven't seen.
All right. Although Azzy has probably seen most of the films, hasn't she?
Pretty much. Okay. Honourable mentions. So let's do this really quick. We already mentioned Sorry We Missed You, which is in my top 10.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. I think it's going slightly down in my estimations. I think it's probably better than I, Daniel Blake.
That's the question I was going to ask you.
It's more of the same, but it's a bit like more of like a kind of family drama. That was a very kind of powerful film. Minding the Gap, a documentary that I think is still a 5-star actually. I think it's that one I'd play.
About skateboarding, but not really about skateboarding.
Exactly, it's got so much more. It's like the one line you say. Beale Street, which we were going to go and see, but we ended up watching Bend It Like Beckham. Yep. I saw that just once, kind of towards the start of the year, and it's managed to stay on my top 10 for a very long time. I think it's a really good film. I think the kind of marriage between the James Baldwin kind of source material and the Barry Jenkins kind of direction, it makes it just so great. Although if you don't like voiceover, it has a lot of voiceover. Do you know what else has a lot of voiceover, Ethan?
What?
Ad Astra, which is a film probably wouldn't get in my top 20 actually. I don't think I like it. Or maybe it would. It's not like the best film I saw, but I feel like you'd really like it because it's just apocalypse now in space.
It's a good premise. Yeah, definitely. If you're going to sell me on that, I'm going to go watch it or film it when it comes on.
It really feels like Blade Runner before the voiceover had been taken out. Like Ad Astra feels like it's been meddled with.
Okay.
Like there are just scenes in that film you're like, what?
Yeah.
And like,
but then I think from the trailer there's also some scenes that don't look as kind of action-packed as you'd expect, and they look a lot more pensive, I think.
Well, the film I wouldn't say is action-packed at all. I'd say it's good. And the action feels like very forced in. I feel like some of the action and voiceovers like really been forced in.
Well, I've seen that one part in the trailer where
the drop's great.
Yeah. That's kind of what I assume there's a lot of in the film. That's all.
Not really.
No.
There's that, and then there's like a chase scene, and there's one more action scene that's so weird. But apart from that, the film is very like Brad Pitt looking off in the middle distance, being sad.
That's cool.
Anyway, Apocalypse Now Final Cut came out last year, which me and Ethan have both joked is our film of the year. Yeah, I mean, it didn't come out last year.
It came out in 1979.
Okay, what else have we got? Very quickly, we've got Hustlers and Bait, which have both been on my top 10.
Are we going to talk about TV after we've done our respective top 5s?
Yeah, we'll do TV at the end.
Yeah, I think that's what we did like last year.
Yeah. So yeah, Hustlers, obviously, it's basically about a group of strippers who start kind of conning Wall Street guys by like drugging them, and then kind of charging their credit cards. After the financial crash, great film. Really enjoyed it. It's pretty good.
Kind of controversial though, right? I'm pretty sure something happened as well. I can never remember the exact details, but there's definitely.
Yeah.
I think some people are quite angry at that film.
Yeah, I think I don't know the full details, but didn't they have to shut down like the club, and then like they didn't pay the members of staff from it enough? It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not showing it for them.
Okay.
I remember that. Bait, which I don't know if you know much about, is
set in Cornwall. That's about it.
It's kind of
got a good aspect ratio.
It's really because it's like hand kind of cranked film. I think it's 16mm. It's shot on, and then it's been post dubbed, so it's very weird and artificial, but it's a really kind of good film. I'd like to see it again at some point.
Nice.
And then there's two that almost made it into your top 5, because let's be honest, you saw like maybe 15 films that you liked last year, maybe not even that many.
What about you? Probably like twice as many, maybe.
Yeah, I could go through like a massive list of like things I gave 4 stars last year. And I'm like, yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
Including Shaun the Sheep. That was a great film.
What, Farmageddon?
Yeah, I'm seeing it again tomorrow.
Okay.
Good stuff. God. Yeah, so the two are Vice.
Sure.
Which we saw together. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd seen it before at that point, and then I came to watch it with you, and I had a really kind of, I think, rare experience with this film. It doesn't happen often that I'm watching something and it makes me so furious that when I left the screening, I had to go and wash my face straight away because I was just incredibly angry with all of the events that took place in that film. And that really, really doesn't happen often. And I think it's something that Adam McKay does extremely well, actually. When you compare his other film, The Big Short, which came out, 2015 maybe, sometime around then, maybe a year earlier, which I felt like I had a similar reaction to. Well, the first time I watched it, of course, because the first time I just didn't know what the hell was going on, because it's The Big Short. But as I've I think I watch The Big Short maybe once a year since I saw it. I watch it quite frequently because it's not only a very entertaining film, but the economic crash of 2008 was such an important event, and I feel like I just want to understand it as much as I can, even though it's so complex that trying to kind of dumb it down to a level where people can understand would be so difficult. And I think that's what Adam McKay kind of was criticised a lot about, because the film was meant to kind of try and simplify those events a bit more, but people were still confused watching it.
Mm.
And I think Vice does a better job handling that.
It's
yeah, it is, and it's also not as complicated. It's about one guy and kind of what he does politically. But I had a similar reaction to it, and I think he is very, very good at taking kind of political figures or just very, very important world of events that impacted so many people and just making you feel like so much contempt towards a singular thing, a singular entity. And in this case, it's Dick Cheney.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, that's it. You said it all. And the other film that technically came out in 2017, if you count where it kind of debuted, but it came out in 2019 in the UK, it's One Cut of the Dead. This is one we definitely shouldn't say too much about.
Yeah, we shouldn't, because I'm not even sure what the film is, to be honest with you.
But yeah, it was good.
It was really good. Yeah, we watched that as a house, didn't we?
We did. Stole that Blu-ray. Yeah, One Cut of the Dead. It's pretty great. All right, should we go through?
Let's do it. So yours or mine first?
I've put yours first, but we can alternate if you want.
We can go through mine
All
first if you want.
I meant we'll do number 5 for you, number 5 for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, gotcha.
All right. So your number 5 film, which we did talk about in last year's one, is 8th Grade.
Yeah, 8th Grade. That is a really, really good film. I've not seen it since I watched it, but the fact that I still would rate it this highly, and the fact that it is one of my 5 favourite films of the year, considering that I watched it in 2018, really goes to show that it's actually stayed with me quite a bit. I don't think it's a film I often think about, but when I think back to watching it, it did, I think, stir up quite a bit, and it did make me think a lot about, about kind of my experiences at that age. I think the main thing that it made me think about a lot is actually my younger sister. And it was kind of one of the reasons that I struggled to get into it at first, only for like the first 10-15 minutes, because I felt like this character, so much of her life was spent doing the things that I've seen my sister do, that it would be so hard to kind of try and put distance between that I think it would have made me struggle to watch the rest of the film. But after a while, I really, really did get into it. I think Bo Burnham did a really, really good job directing it. I think it's a very stylized film, and there's some really, really, really good sequences where I think it's really good at capturing the anxiety that you would get and the stress that you would feel at certain points in your life. I guess just even simple things as making friends as well. And then, of course, there's that really quite well-known sequence later on in the film, where she's driving back with that older teenager. And that sequence was very, very uncomfortable to watch. And I think it just does a really good job, I guess, capturing a specific part of your life and showing it in such an honest way. And I also remember feeling a lot of pity and sympathy for her father as well, because when I watch this film, I see a lot of the way that not only my sister speaks to our parents, but also the way that I've treated my parents as well. And that kind of made me upset, because I realised that actually what my parents really want to, and what the father in this film really wants to more than anything is just to be close to their child and just to have that relationship with them. But I can't remember the name of the character in the film. All she really does is she just gets very frustrated with her dad quickly, and she doesn't, I guess, appreciate his presence in her life, and that's something that I could definitely latch onto as well. And I guess it's a fear of my own when it comes to that point in my life where if I have children, that I'm worried that I won't be as close to them, and they will kind of resent me in the same way. So yeah, that's 8th grade.
That's a really good review of 8th grade.
Thank you.
I mean, we did kind of talk about it towards the end of last year's podcast, and then I said I need to rewatch it, and I was planning on rewatching it all year and just didn't. So I can't offer anything new that I couldn't before. I still think it's great, but yeah, I really do need to kind of rewatch it. I'm still not a massive fan of the ending, but I don't know.
What do you like about the ending very much?
That's a good question.
I don't remember the film having like a concrete conclusion. It just sort of it's like the film just stops running.
I guess the moment where she kind of finally stands up for herself is quite good, and she kind of makes a friend. But I feel like it's that classic kind of thing. The film didn't feel very conventional up until that point. I felt like it was very kind of boundary pushing and showing things I've never seen before. Yeah. And then for it to kind of it was like, okay, we need to reach kind of more conventional 3-act structure ending.
In fact, you've mentioned another thing. Wasn't Bo Burnham kind of pissed off at the fact that, I don't know if this was in the US or the UK or both, but the age rating that the film was given meant that the target audience couldn't see the film?
It's an R and it's a 15, so it's in both, which is kind of bad. And this film did come out on the same day as Endgame as well, which is an interesting fact. Endgame isn't my next film. That would have been a really smooth transition.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, but should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, we can do.
Alright, so my number 5 pick is Knives Out.
Good film.
I suspect foully.
What's the cheese?
Yeah, so Knives Out, written and directed by Ryan Johnson. It's really fun. It's really fun. This is definitely one where I'd advise, if you've not seen it, don't listen to this.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a murder mystery, or pretends to be a murder mystery, until about 25 minutes in, where it shows you the murder.
How it was done.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, this is
Who did
interesting. And then the film completely shifts and becomes a thriller in which you're rooting for the murderer to get away with the murder. And the detective, who seems really mysterious, now just looks like a complete oaf and becomes the antagonist of the film almost. Until, in its final kind of 10 minutes, it reveals it was actually a conventional murder mystery. It's just like the way it kind of plays. I think it's a very funny film. Seeing it at Film Unit recently with like 300 people kind of made that kind of
I bet that was great
audience experience. I feel like it's one if I watched on my own, I maybe it won't like it as much, but it's a real crowd pleaser. Yeah. I think its politics are very obvious and clear, but it's still kind of satisfying. I mean, this year was 2019, and like start of 2020 is the year for like films about kind of where the rich people are the villains. We've gone back to the 80s, I thought it was great. Anna de Armas, I think, was really good. I've really enjoyed Benoit Blanc. This ridiculous character, and I'm very glad that Ryan Johnson is going to do another film with Benoit Blanc. I think this could be a franchise.
I think I would really like that a lot, actually. Like a series of adventures with this PI going around doing things. I think that would work out really well.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, it harkens back to the old kind of Poirot, Agatha Christie stories.
Yeah, definitely.
But with like a modern spin. I think it's shot really well. I think every performance is good. Like the cast is insane. I don't really have too much more to say because it's such a solid film.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say either. I think you hit every point that I would have done if I'd started off talking about it first. I think the fact that you mentioned that every performance is great is so true. Because the whole film revolves around this just powerhouse of a family who all seem to have their own kind of, I guess, lavish lives. I guess I can't think of a better way of putting it. And the cast list is just immense, and they all play their characters extremely well. I think you get across to you exactly the kind of person they are, exactly the kind of relationships that there are between family members as well.
They do it really quickly as well.
Yeah,
they
do.
I think it's very efficient. The first 20 minutes are like they establish everyone's character, what happened that night, and like they show you like everyone has like a motive as well.
But I feel like it never verges on being convoluted at all. You can always follow very, very closely. I think the film does a good job with that.
Like having almost the twist that it was a murder mystery like her kind of hiding this. Yeah, I think it was great, even if it's kind of maybe obvious it's Chris Evans, but I don't know.
Well, I know it was Chris Evans because I read that Letterboxd review about it.
The film's like, it's Chris Evans, it's so obviously him, and then it tells you it's not a murder mystery, which kind of makes you think it's not Chris Evans, and then the twist is it was Chris Evans all along. Yeah. Just that satisfying bit where he like has the knife and it's a fake knife, which is sad, but it really is like one of the. I think for me this is probably the best screenplay of the year. I really think it's brilliant. Right.
I understand that.
Do you want to move on to number 4?
We can do. Your number 4?
Yeah, we'll do my number 4. My number 4 is Avengers Endgame.
I thought it was your number 3.
Yeah, I shifted. So Endgame. I used to have a rule that I'd never see a film twice in cinemas, and Endgame broke this rule because I saw it 3 times, and then I saw a film attempted 4 times.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. When we were talking about Infinity War last year, obviously the joke is like, oh, they're just gonna bring everyone back, and obviously they will, but it's how they do it, and how they do it is by having 2 hours of 2 hours of kind of suffering, and not just suffering. It's the first hour's an hour of suffering, second hour's an hour of kind of fun and nostalgia, and then you have the third hour, which is kind of the climax, the big kind of fight.
That's like the very typical Marvel part of the film, the third hour.
Yeah, I remember, re-listening to what you had to say about Infinity War, you were like, oh, I really want a Marvel film about Iron Man, and he's tending to his, like, farm. I was like, wow, you completely called what the first hour of this film is. Yeah, but I won't talk about this too long, because me and Tony have talked, like, the day after we saw it, we did talk for, like, a very long time about it.
Yes, I remember.
But I'm more interested to hear what you have to say, because I've got my thought. Basically, all I have to say is like everything I said in that I kind of agree with more, and I think I like the film even more actually now.
It's a 3-hour film, and it was a really enjoyable experience. I don't think it's a bad film at all by any means. I actually think it's pretty good, and it's definitely one of the stronger Marvel films. In fact, I think this and Infinity War is a fantastic. I guess a double bill. I mean more leading from one to the next to conclude like this epic series of 21 films at this point. Yeah, I think it does the job. Considering especially, it was a big thing at the time because the finale of Game of Thrones was coming out around then. And everyone was talking about how the 8th series was going completely downhill. But Endgame managed to completely just blow everyone away. Because I think people were... Well, actually, you tell me, do you think people at the time were kind of hesitant about Endgame and thinking, oh, what if they don't put it off? Or were people kind of confident that it would deliver?
I don't know. I think people, because of the other films that this kind of creative team of the 2 directors, the Russos and then Marcus and McFeely as the writers, they've done all the Captain Americas and Infinity War. So like they've not really put out a dud yet. So I guess if you trusted in them, but it was, I don't know. I feel like it was obviously going to be hard to pull off something that satisfied everyone, which has always seemed like Endgame did, because everyone saw it.
Yeah, definitely. I think Endgame had me hooked from the very first scene because of just how I think completely tonally different to anything that I've seen in a Marvel film up until this, well, an MCU film, I guess, if I'm not including Logan in that, where it starts off with Hawkeye, with his family, and the whole thing is just it doesn't even feel like it's from a Marvel film. Everything down to the way that it was shot, to the way that it was acted, to the lack of music or a score behind it. It was so cold. And it was just a moment of him turning back and seeing nothing there. That I thought was like, okay, this is the kind of Marvel film that I'm really going to be interested in. But then I did like Infinity War a lot. I think Infinity War was really, really great until... I guess the big CGI fight towards the end. I'm not really a massive fan of those.
So what did you think about not just the fight in this, but like the build up to the fight? Because in this one you've got the kind of great moment where Cap lifts the hammer. You get the payoff of that, and then you get the portals where they all come through the portals.
Yeah.
And then the build up before the fight.
It's a really good moment. I will admit that someone told me afterwards that the final act is like 40 minutes, and I didn't believe it. It felt no more than 5. I'm not kidding, because there was so much action happening on screen. It was just such an epic fight between just a complete side of a franchise versus the other complete side of the same franchise, and it was just incredible. And I really, really couldn't believe that it was as long as it was. But it did have that moment, I think, that people sort of talked about a little bit. Do you know the one I'm on about? where all of the female characters in the MCU have their frame. How do you feel about that?
I thought it was like good. I don't think they earned it. Like I feel like them trying to be like, look how like progressive we are. It's like one of these characters has had a film and it was like a month ago. It's like you've not done nothing to kind of champion female filmmakers or characters in the franchise. You can't kind of pretend to do it now. But I guess it's a step in the right direction. I don't know. I mean, I didn't mind it. It's fine.
I think it was quite forced, but other than that, I think I have the same opinion.
But when you think about it, like none of these characters have like talked really or interacted.
Nah.
It's kind of like, okay, some work needs to be done in like making Marvel not just like the white guys, which I think definitely is probably the future of the franchise.
The other thing to say about Endgame is that I think we've talked about this before, where if you take the whole thing of everyone having to get used to the fact that half of the universe like just vanished and turn that into a miniseries, I would be so into that because that's just the leftovers.
It's just the leftovers, not more.
Yeah. Genuinely, one of my favourite scenes in the film is a really, really dull scene, but it's just the kind of thing that I'd want out of a Marvel film. And it's Chris Evans at a meeting that he organises about people who have lost, I guess, family and close friends. And he's just talking to them about how it feels to just lose people like that.
And the film's also, because the film's first act is, but the arc is about bringing people back and the kind of sacrifices made.
Yeah.
And at the very end, the very final shot of the film as well, is kind of him finally being reunited with Peggy.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's a good moment towards the beginning where they just kill Thanos off, straight off the bat.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, because obviously the Infinity War's big talking point between all of us is like Thanos. And like the only way that they could really settle this like morally complex character was just kill him off, and then pick a version of him that was like more of a psychopath.
I know. It was so because the whole thing about Infinity War was that it sparked this insane debate about Thanos and whether he's a character that you can latch onto, whether he's even slightly remotely justified in doing what he's doing. And then this film kind of reverses that and dumbs him back down to, I guess, a version of him that's a lot less three-dimensional than he definitely was in Infinity War. Because he was essentially the main character. He was the not the protagonist.
He was the point of view character.
Yeah,
definitely. So yeah, I feel like Endgame's been talked about. But do you like it more than Infinity War? Do you like Infinity War?
I think I like Infinity War more, actually. I think that's just because I think it's a better title. But apart from that, they are very even. I think my favourite thing about Infinity War, which again I've told you before, is just I love the way that it has so many different stories happening at one go. And what it does is it essentially takes characters from different sets and different groups and then kind of matches them up with different sets.
Yeah.
So you've got characters that would ordinarily never meet, and then you get to watch their exchanges together. And I think that's really interesting. So you get Iron Man with Doctor Strange, both essentially the same person, and then you get to see how they interact with one another. And I think that's it's good. It's satisfying to watch. I guess I liked Infinity War a lot for that.
Yeah. All right. So you're number 4, which is actually, well, this just missed out on my top 10 actually. It's Midsommar.
Midsommar. Yeah, that's a very good film. So I've only seen it the one time. I'm trying to remember where I saw it. Would it have been Odeon?
We saw it together. I remember we saw it together, and then we went out for a meal, and we went in with the cinema and it was light, and we came out and it was dark, and because the screen had been so light, you're kind of, it's such a bright film. I remember when I stepped out, I had like a headache for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Midsommar's pretty polarizing, isn't it? To say the least.
I don't know. I think I've seen a lot of love for it. I mean, I have seen it one more time than you, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think polarizing in a negative sense. I mean, it's a film that has, I guess it just takes you to the extreme.
Oh yeah.
So far that when you come out of it, you have to kind of, I guess, regain composure in some sense.
All right.
Yeah.
So why do you like Midsommar?
Midsommar. Well, I saw Ari Aster's previous film. I think was Hereditary his first feature?
First feature.
And I fucking love that film so much. I remember my experience with Hereditary was that I was in the back row of the cinema, or close to the back row, and there were a few people on my row, like over to maybe like a few seats over, and they were talking throughout the whole film. And it was getting on my nerves so much, and that was just to show how invested I was in this film. And I really, really, really loved Hereditary. I mean, as Toni Collette's performance, she didn't get nominated for that at the Oscars, and that really pissed me off a lot. But it has great other stuff. It has this very dissonant score. It sticks with you. which Midsommar also has. In fact, Midsommar has that, I guess. I mean, your favourite part of the film is what, the opening 5-10 minutes, maybe? It's definitely the stuff before they go to sleep.
Well, yeah, my feeling of the opening 5 minutes is the kind of trauma, and that's the scariest part of the film. Because the film is like weird as it is for me, isn't the most scary thing. Like it's almost it's kind of about, it's a feel good film where a woman leaves her shit boyfriend and finds an empathetic and caring community, really, in the most fucked up way. So that's kind of that is the most horrifying bit.
Yeah, you're right. I think Hereditary is scarier. Hereditary, there were some moments where they caught me off guard so much, and I was just like, what the hell's happening on the screen right now? Although Midsommar definitely had those as well. But I think Midsommar is, I don't know if I'd say Midsommar is more extreme, but there is something about it that it has more of a Hereditary. I just don't, it's probably not as scary. I think it's more all-encompassing than Hereditary. I think that's probably what I'm looking for.
So my big problem with Hereditary is I just thought it was too long.
Yeah.
But Midsommar being longer, I don't have a problem with. Even so, I've bought the director's cut, which I'm going to watch. I'm gonna, because I feel like it's almost a slow burn in the way like they're getting killed off one by one. I saw someone compare it to like a Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, you know, just like everyone gets killed off one by one by like something they're doing. But just the slow burn of like being curious about what's going on and the almost hypnotic way, because everything is very slow, everything's very deliberate, and everything's very authentic and real, and it's so good. Like the way it's shot.
Oh, definitely,
it's brilliant.
Definitely, I completely agree with that. I don't know if I could give you a long summary of all the things that I really enjoyed about this film.
But the big one is Florence Pugh, right?
Oh, definitely. That's what I was just about to say. I think something that Ari Aster does extremely well, and I'm not even sure how Toni Collette gave a performance as good as she did. But I feel like he can bring an intensity out of his actors in such a just kind of like, in such an emotional way. Because I guess being a horror film, you have to show that the events happening on screen are really getting to the characters. I think Florence Pugh really, really delivers on that straight from the beginning as well, because you have that really traumatic experience from her in the first 5-10 minutes of the film. And then as soon as she gets to Sweden, as soon as she gets anywhere near that kind of settlement, things are already starting to go haywire for her, and you could just see it. You could just see it in her performance straight away. There's something off about it all. But yeah, I don't think her boyfriend's that bad, actually.
I think apparently he's worse than the director's cut. I don't know. I think he's just very like unsupportive of her, and he's just not attentive to her. And I think he doesn't really love her that much.
Yeah, I don't remember him being he's not like arsehole, but he's very like uncaring, I guess.
Yeah, like I don't think he's like a stereotype. Like Will Poulter in this film is very much just like.
Yeah, but he's like comic relief or stuff. Yeah. He's the guy who's pissing on the tree trunk and stuff. That's his character.
But I think he's more like nuanced and subtle in the ways that he's kind of annoying. Like it's just small things, like when he doesn't know exactly how many years they've been going out for, and just tiny little things like that. They kind of build.
You also have a thing about Ari Aster using characters that have deformities as a way to convey horror. I think
Hereditary isn't kind of exploitative in that way, but I felt like this was a lot more exploitative in the way it kind of. I think it's quite ableist. I've also seen some people complain that like it kind of, because it's got that really weird sex scene that I've seen a lot of people kind of say is actually a rape scene, which I'm not too sure about that because it's unclear actually how aware of his actions he is because he's been drugged. Apparently, again, things are clarified in the director's cut, but
yeah, I think my opinion on that scene is that it's not really down to him as such. It's down to the fact that it's definitely something that's being forced upon her, like for sure. So I think I probably would go as far as to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, him being drugged, I don't know if that. I guess it's kind of a difficult question.
Because so many characters are drugged towards the end of the film. It's almost like how much autonomy do they have in this process? How much is it things are being like forced upon them, or how much? I don't know. I feel like that's maybe a slight weakness of the film. But I like this more than Hereditary. I really like Midsommar. My dad wanted to watch it, so I put the Blu-ray on for him downstairs, and I just got a text like an hour in being like, "This is so fucked up," which really sums it up.
Yeah, that's Ari Aster. I think weirdly enough, the most fucked up thing he's ever done is actually that short film that I watched. The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, like that is just, oh god, it kind of, It sends shivers down my spine just to think about that short.
Yeah, that is horrible. Right. Should we move on to a less horrible horror film, which is your number 3?
Yeah, go on, man.
It's my number 6 as well, and it was my number 1 for the longest time.
It's Us, isn't it?
Yeah, it is Us. It just shows how good this is.
Us is an extremely rewatchable film, and I didn't think that'd be the case when I first watched it, but I've seen it I've seen it twice since. I watched it once again at the cinema at Film Unit, and then I watched it again with my mum, actually, over Christmas just gone, and I would happily watch it again, I think, in a few weeks or so, because it just has that. And I don't even think it's so much the sense that the film is so well layered and it's so tightly constructed. Like, that's the thing about Jordan Peele. Like, his films are so like tightly knit together, and everything matters. Every single detail matters in his films. I think it's just really, I think it's really entertaining. I think every scene in the film has something that I really like about it. Whether it be a particular performance in that scene, a particular piece of music in that scene, a particular piece of action in that scene. There's always something every moment in that film. There's always something to latch onto and to enjoy. It'll be a joke or just a piece of dialogue or something like that. Lupita Nyong'o is unbelievably good in it. You made the amazing joke about how she should be nominated for Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress as well this year, and she got snubbed, unfortunately. I'm trying to think of what else I really like about it. I guess it does have that. It's kind of there's a lot of ambiguity with the film, and there's definitely a sense of you can come out of it and think about it a lot, because there's still a lot of stuff that feels like it's been kind of underexplained, but for a purpose, of course. Not like it's not like it was accidental or anything. I think he wants you to leave still thinking about it, still thinking about these people in the tunnels, what the title of the film is actually about, things like that. I mean, you'd probably know more, I think, right? You did a lot more research into this film.
Well, I saw it once with Johnny, actually, just before we did that very, very bad Voice of the Hood podcast.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we literally got a cab from the cinema to there. And then I went and saw it with you a couple of days after. And I did see it in Film Unit as well, so it's the other film this year I've seen more than twice at the cinema. I wrote a review which I gave it 5 stars, which I stand by. I think it's a really good film. It lacks the simplicity of Get Out. I think Get Out's simplicity is what makes it such an effective film. But I think this at times is scarier. I think it's trying to say more. It's as you said, it's all encompassing. It's not much longer either. It's really efficient, like you say. I think again, Lupita Nyong'o gives the best performance of the year for me, twice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think Red is such like an already iconic kind of horror character, and there's so many things in this film that I feel like almost already iconic, and maybe you could say he was trying too hard with that. I think the ambiguity is great. I think what the film has to say about kind of class, greed, America, capitalism, like the darker side of like ourselves. I think you can kind of read it, but I've seen it 3 times and I've almost taken different things away each time.
Yeah.
The way it sets everything up in that kind of prologue section when she's young, like the hands across America, the Michael Jackson Thriller shirt, the kind of the maze of mirrors being like Native American theme, like everything is there.
Yeah.
And this film does a great thing, which it's not really spoiled in the trailers, but and it's quite, I guess it's spoiled if you go on the IMDb and look at the character names, but it's got like amazing, terrifying. I think the film is very scary up until the first night, and then it goes from being like a kind of slasher to being more of like a apocalyptic film.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it's never scary after that. But the after the incredibly scary kind of slasher night where they're visiting, you've got that great kind of once upon a time scene, which is terrifying. They get away, and then it cuts to Tim Heidecker and Elizabeth Moss, which is an incredible pair. And then it turns out everyone in the world has devils, but you've been so encapsulated by the kind of interiority of this family's story. You don't even consider that there are other people, and it's an apocalyptic event, really.
I agree with that. I think.
Also, wait, can I just quickly say?
Of course you can.
That also the scene in which Tim Heidecker and Elizabeth Moss die, and they come and visit the house with the music playing, the Beach Boys and NWA.
That actually brings me on to my other point, which I think one of the weaker aspects of this film. There are some moments where it is done well. I think the part where the NWA song plays is really, really funny. But I think one of the stronger things about Get Out is that it's well known for being a horror film, but it's also really well known for having I guess like an equal amount of comedy in it as well, because Jordan Peele is obviously from the comedy duo Key and Peele, as well, so he's definitely got a background in that. But I think that Get Out does the comedy aspects well. I think what's very, very difficult to do is comedy and horror in the same kind of moment or in the same kind of frame. But what he does so well in Get Out is that he keeps them very, very separate. And I think that actually it doesn't hinder Get Out at all. And what I think he does more in Us, it doesn't work quite as well as it does in Get Out. He tries to blend those two, I guess, genres a bit more.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. I think the horror is always still there, but there are some kind of there are some jokes. I don't even think some of the jokes are particularly great. But they're made even worse because of the fact that it feels like the horror is kind of stepping on the comedy, and the comedy is kind of stepping on the horror at times, and they're sort of trying to fight it out. But then there's never really kind of never kind of a middle ground.
I get what you mean, because I guess the comedic relief in Get Out is literally in a separate location.
Yeah,
the main character, whereas this Gabe is the kind of comic relief, and he's in the film, like he's in amongst the kind of the horror.
Yeah,
more.
I think it's because I just don't believe that this family of people would be cracking jokes about Home Alone and things like that while they're being terrorized by doppelgangers. I just don't buy that at all, and that's happened in all sorts of films before in the past where characters have been in kind of life or death situations. And I understand using comedy and trying to tell jokes as a way to sort of relieve tension or a way to kind of make yourself feel less scared about something, but I just don't think the jokes land a lot of the time. And I think they're kind of the weaker aspects of Us, but it's probably the only flaw that really comes to mind. I think everything else is better. I think the reason I like it more than Get Out, full stop, is that Get Out kind of feels like it stagnates a lot of the time, being set principally in one location. But Us feels like it's constantly moving forward. So it starts off in the house, and they're moving to a new location, and there is kind of like a propelling motion with that.
I love how it ends where it starts almost, in the fun part.
Oh yeah.
And you got that. I don't know why I like it so much. It's the escalators that are going up.
Mm.
You know,
I also really like.
Or constantly going down. Sorry, so there's no way up. From this place.
Yeah.
A really creepy facility, which and like I really like all the kind of the very third act, you know, and the reveal of the twist and.
Yeah, but I think you once told me that you're not a massive fan of how you think that Red reveals too much information, right?
Yeah, I think the film. She starts explaining like a little bit, and then she stops, and I feel like the film tries to have it both ways of being very ambiguous and also trying to like satisfy people who are like, that's a plot hole. Ding. And even trying to have it both ways, the film kind of almost doesn't make sense quite literally. It's like, where would they get all these things from? But like, that's not my criticism. Let's just move on from that. Because it works thematically. The film works emotionally. Like I say, the twist. I definitely should have seen coming. I don't know how I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, it's quite obvious.
Yeah, it's really obvious. But it's brilliant, and the second time you see the film, it's just a different performance that Lupita's giving on both sides. It's so late. She's so late. I think both the kids are really good, especially in the like scary versions. Like the physicality of both of them in their mirror versions.
Definitely. I think Gabe's probably the weakest performance in the family. I think all the other three are actually comfortably much better. In fact, So Lupita is definitely the best. And I think the daughter's probably just below that. And I think what makes her performance so good is that there's such a radical difference between herself and then the doppelganger
it's the
version.
smile she does.
Yeah.
It's like a different person.
It's very, very freaky. And I guess you could argue that Gabe's doppelganger is a lot more different than him. But then I feel like I guess the person in the family who's most mirrored is probably the younger boy. Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of weird stuff. Like I've seen some theories being like, have they swapped? Because there's some weird stuff to do with that. But I don't think that's the case. God. Yeah. So I guess you could see like different aspects like mirrored in their kind of shadow versions of the doppelgangers. Kind of Gabe's kind of repressed. Kind of he's like upper middle class, like suburban, like dad, but like telling lame jokes versus this kind of primitive, like he looks just like so much bigger.
Yeah,
when
like
the way
I think that's to do with Cameron.
I think he's called Abraham.
He is called Abraham.
Yeah, the way Abraham's framed versus the way Gabe is. I think that's brilliant.
Can I just talk about another one of probably my favourite sequence in the film, actually? Because of the score that's playing in that scene. It's
Is
just
it the very
sublime.
final?
No, it'll be just before that, but it will be the final competition between Red and...
the music. We haven't even talked...
we haven't really talked about the music very much. And I love that sequence so much because of the way that it's juxtaposed with a dance as well. And I think that's such a clever... it's such a clever thing to do, because when you look back at the two fighting, it almost does look like a dance. Like, it doesn't even look like they're fighting. It's the way that... I can't remember Lupita Nyong'o's, I guess, the regular version of her. What's she called, that character?
Adelaide.
We all know Red. Adelaide, yeah. It's the way that when Adelaide moves, it's so kind of like, I guess rough is probably the best way to use it. Like there isn't much strength there, but the way that Red moves, there's such like a fluidity in motion. Like it's just everything is kind of so swift and it's so just smooth. And when you have those two kind of, I guess, physicalities coming together, it just makes for a really engaging scene and a really fantastic sequence, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I really love how kind of Adelaide develops throughout it. Because Get Out is great. I do love Get Out, and I say the simplicity is the best aspect. But it's very clearly about one thing, and it hammers that point home. Whereas this is about so much more. And like I say, when you're watching it the second time, and you kind of have this read that suddenly Adelaide is now an imposter. She's kind of got imposter syndrome. It's almost like people who kind of come from working class backgrounds and make it. It's that feeling of like never really fitting in. And she's almost trying to like, at that point, she's like trying to kill her past. She's like just, in that kind of dance and fight.
Definitely.
Yeah. And also, I think the dance they kind of hinted that's the moment in which they realised that Red was different. And it's kind of the tug of war that you can see happens in that scene. But
yeah,
I think the final thing I want to say is just how good the last shot is with the music playing. And I love the MCU, and I love that kind of whole aspect of like interconnected storytelling. But Us just reminds you that like you can just end a film with like an apocalyptic event. And just the fact that this is like the world now, and you can have that shot of the hands across America with the music. It's just such a great way to end the film.
I'll be completely honest with you as well. Another reason that I like Us more than Get Out is it's such a dumb reason, and it's such an Ethan thing to do as well. But I remember with Get Out, I really liked it a lot. Then as time went on, I started to like it a lot less, and I think it was to do with the fact that it just gained a lot of popularity. And there was just a time back at school where just everyone seemed to be talking about it, like maybe 4 or 5 months after it was originally released, and that's when I realised I don't like this film as much anymore.
This is just Parasite. You're going to do the same thing with Parasite.
Literally. But Us has received, I guess, a lot more criticism. I don't think it's not held as highly in regard as Get Out. And that makes me like Us a lot more as well, because I not only think it's a better film, but just to know that people, I guess, like it less, that it's less popular.
I think a lot
makes
of
me appreciate
people like it a lot less than Us.
Yeah, definitely.
This is like, alright, should we do my number 3?
We should
last for a very long time. Talking about haunting final shots, this is The Irishman. Martin Scorsese's return to this kind of film, I guess. I guess if you see The Departed as this kind of film.
I suppose so. I don't know if he's gonna. Do you think? Come on, he won't be. I think this is probably his last epic gangster film. Like he won't carry on making gangster films anymore, really.
Yeah. I don't think, especially at this kind. But the gang's back together. It's it's Pacino, it's De Niro, it's Pesci.
Mm-hmm. Throw Harvey Keitel in there as well.
And they've been de-aged. It looks a bit weird. But yeah, so he made this for Netflix. I went and saw it at the cinema, and then I rewatched it on Netflix with you. We did pause. So any purists out there, we did do that. But yeah, it's as much as it's a sweeping epic, Goodfellas, Casino, that kind of film. I think it's also very intimate. I think its last kind of hour is some of the most empowering I've seen in a film. It's like it becomes kind of more recent Scorsese, especially with Silence, which is a film with a lot of similar themes, and it makes you like kind of worry about him. Like, this guy's really thinking about death and religion. Like, he's really thinking about like what's going to happen when he dies. And I think The Irishman's the greatest trick The Irishman ever pulled was making the first 2 hours like kind of fun and funny. And I think the relationship between Hoffa and Sheeran is great. I think there's like pretty tragic moments with his family and Anna Paquin, even though she doesn't speak. She's the heart of the film. I think that kind of conflict's great. But yeah, like you got the humor, you've got the Stephen Graham scenes. I think Pacino is so funny in this film.
He is very funny.
Like he's so stubborn. And he just refuses, like, the scenes where he's going back, De Niro's going back and forth as a messenger, and Pacino's just not budging one bit. But then you kind of realize that's his downfall, and there's the inevitability of the way he's killed. It takes so long, and it's so drawn out.
But the way
it's such a stupid conversation they're having on the way there and back.
That's true, yeah. It's about fish, isn't it? Right? Yeah. It's such a menial conversation. But the way he's killed as well is so quick, you almost missed it. When we were watching together, I almost missed it. I kind of had to blink because you just shoot Sheeran. You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But even when it actually finally happened, you almost didn't believe your eyes.
It's that kind of quick violence. Like I think all of the hits in this film are kind of.
It's like he doesn't even take a moment. He just shoots him as he's about to walk out the front door. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of. I feel like all of those those kind of bursts of violence are like that, and the film is about death the whole way through, and almost. I mean, every time a new character is introduced, it tells you how they die.
Yeah,
which is like a good running joke with the payoff of like Love by All. But yeah, so you've got this whole thing the whole way through. It's very fun. You've got the old gang back together. You're kind of enjoying the ride. It's a bit sprawling and it's a bit chaotic, and maybe it's a tiny bit too long. But finally you get the payoff when they all kind of get arrested for various reasons, and as the film goes on, I think the de-aging tech, it looks a bit weird because he doesn't look like young Robert De Niro. He looks like young Frank Sheeran. He's a lot stockier.
Yeah.
But the way they do that is because so they can gradually age them. So by the time we're getting to them in prison, them in the nursing home,
he looks even older than he does in real life.
They're actually aging him up, and it's so much older. And seeing Pesci, like, with his hand shaking, and like he's kind of turned to religion, that's kind of sad. And he's brilliant in the film as well. We have to mention this kind of like quietly spoken, controlling mob boss. It's very
completely different change to the older kind of characters that you played in earlier Scorsese films.
I think that's brilliant. And when it's Frank Sheeran, buying his own coffin, the lawyers come. Is it the lawyers or the police come in? The police come and visit him and ask him to give him information. And he says, "You have to speak to my lawyer. Your lawyer's dead." Who did it? Cancer. It's kind of it's so heartbreaking. He goes and he tries to reconnect with his daughters, and they kind of reveal what we as the audience have seen, like the eyes through the eyes of Anna Paquin, what they kind of saw of him and how he was trying to keep them safe, but really it's terrifying.
It's good as well because at that point it's so far into the film that you don't even, because it's been so fixated on him and Hoffa, that you don't even notice until that point. Oh yeah, he has just neglected his children for their entire existence. Of course, Anna Paquin would realistically lash out in this way and just not speak to him. And so that's completely believable. And when you spend that last hour of the film looking back, it's just everything up until that point makes sense. You believe the interaction between the characters. You believe that certain friendships, certain relationships would fall apart. It's all set up from the first minute of the film as well. Yeah. I think it comes together really nicely.
I think it's a very generational story as well. I think it's trying to tell a story about a generation of people, kind of, especially older men who did neglect their children, who were kind of bad parents, and the way that their attitude of coming back from a war and just having to put up with it. Obviously, in this case, you turn to a life of crime. Just this kind of this idea of this stiff upper lip, and almost kind of Scorsese's, I think, is criticising that throughout the film. And just the way that everyone kind of goes the same way. Everyone dies. I love the final moment where he's like, just leave it a little bit open.
Yeah.
When the priest kind of leaves him. I also love the kind of, talking about the generational stuff, the fact that the film is premeditated on the idea that the audience kind of don't really know who Jimmy Hoffa is, or have like a vague idea. And then by the end, he's like looking back, he's like, this is Jimmy Hoffa, and the nurse has no idea who Jimmy Hoffa is. And you're like, it was all for nothing. It's all pointless.
Because most people have like a vague notion of the name. I think before I watched the film, I was aware that I knew he was connected to crime in some way, and there was something definitely immoral about him and his dealings. But I had no idea.
Is what he was doing immoral when because the government weren't protecting workers, so he was going through other means of power to kind of help working people, even if he was trimming a bit off the top.
Sure, I don't think he's an awful guy by all means. I definitely support his message and what he's trying to do for America. Don't get me wrong. But I knew that he was related to gangsters and I guess the mafia in some shape or form. Definitely, I was aware of that. It's interesting because I do really like this film. I think I would give it like a 4 stars. So I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's really good. I don't know. I don't think it really. I think I was looking forward to it a lot, and actually sitting down to watch it, I wanted it to be excellent, and it just kind of wasn't, and that sort of made me not really. It didn't really stick with me.
Do you know why that is? Have you worked out why? I mean, it's not got the energy or the dynamism of like Goodfellas, does it? It's not that. I think it's a different beast.
No,
really.
it's not. I guess I don't know. I guess with a theme of death or kind of, I guess, more existential questions like that, I think I just maybe look. I think I look more to other directors because I think they kind of do it better than he does. I don't mean to say that his opinion or the way he does things is any less valid at all. I just don't think it kind of. I don't know. I guess I look to Scorsese for other themes and for other things, and see that I just don't think he just quite hits the mark for me.
Yeah.
I'm afraid. I do love Goodfellas. I love Taxi Driver. I love The Departed. I mean, they're all like incredible films that I will continue to watch in an insane amount of times for the rest of my life. But I just don't think The Irishman is quite there for me. But yeah, the performances are all great.
I mean, De Niro, I think in particular, it's one of my favourite De Niro films. Definitely, I think he was snubbed for an Oscar maybe because of they weren't sure about the tech.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely the Andy Serkis thing of being neglected because of the tech. But the scene in which he kind of talks on the phone to Hoffa's wife is such a kind of heartbreaking.
You mean
scene.
after Hoffa's dead?
Yeah, and he talks about it later, where doing that, the old man from De Niro, and he's like, how could I make a call like that?
Definitely, I will give the film a lot of credit. At some point in the film, you do start to get like a really sick feeling in your stomach because you realise that something like Hoffa is just not going to come out of this okay. And you're worried because there's a part of you that thinks, God, it's not going to be his own bodyguard, is it? And then when there's that conversation that he has with Pesci, like over salad,
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And then from that moment to Hoffa's death, it's just gut wrenchingly hard to watch, especially because it's not even the last, I guess, half an hour, 40 minutes where it's just De Niro kind of getting old. Even before that, I feel like the film slows down to a considerably slower pace. Like, I get the day where Hoffa actually dies, all the scenes happen at just this. It's like a dreadingly slow pace. Like the whole getting on the plane, landing, driving around with Jesse Plemons, all of that. Yeah. It's just like, oh, can you just get this over with?
I think it's weird as well because the film has two framing devices, right? So it starts with De Niro in a nursing home when Still of the Night's playing, and then he's telling the story of a road trip. Yeah. And then you realise that the road trip is the day that Hoffa dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's almost. And that's why it's kind of lingering so long on this moment.
So that's them going to the wedding of
Bill Buffalino.
Yeah, that's right. What's he, Ray Romano?
Ray Romano. You've seen this film. Yeah. I mean, we could quickly mention that scene, which definitely should have been cut, where you can change someone's face as much as you like, but an old man's still an old man. And when you pick a wide shot of him beating up someone, he's gonna look like an old man.
Yeah.
And the sound design in that scene in particular was not great.
Yeah, it's quite a weaker part of the film. I guess that's just one of the flaws of that tech. You can definitely make him look younger facially, but to actually like change the whole physique of someone's body, not happening now.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I definitely enjoyed this both times. I think seeing it in the cinema was good, but the argument Scorsese made, his King of Comedy was in theaters for one day. Like, everyone who's seen that film has not seen that film like in theaters originally. Yeah. So like, I think it's a
good argument to make.
It's a completely valid method to distribute your films via Netflix, I think. Which brings us on to your number two, which is A Marriage Story.
Yeah, Marriage Story. I watched this again over Christmas. I think I watched like a fair amount of these over Christmas. Irishman had definitely been like a similar time, maybe just a little bit before that. I think it was before we broke.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, Marriage Story. I watched, I think, in a couple of. In fact, I think I watched it in two halves, and there was like maybe 4 or 5 days in between me watching the first half and watching the second half. I think it was maybe an hour there and then an hour afterwards. And I really, really love this film. I think the best thing about it, by quite a considerable way for me, is the way that it's shot from. Well. The film is so clearly about the director and his divorce himself, and I think he does an exceptionally good job telling the story from both perspectives. Because I think a very easy thing to do with this sort of story is to just focus on the Adam Driver character and just kind of fixate on that more than anything, and kind of just sharing your anger. But I feel like what he does just really, really well is that he has the ability to kind of tell it from both perspectives, and he's able to kind of see that, okay, yeah, this person's not perfect, but then this person isn't perfect either. And I think that shows a lot of sympathy and a lot of self-reflection, and I always really like that about people. And in this film especially, because Adam Driver is clearly the person who is more at wrong. I think he was the worst person in the relationship. And I think Scarlett Johansson wanting a divorce. I'm not even sure which of them wanted a divorce in the first place. I don't know the film ever.
I think she hands him, but.
Oh yeah. Actually, no, that is true. But at that point, you don't really know who's kind of initiated the separation full stop, do you? But yeah, I think you kind of assume that it's her because he's definitely fucked up more. But even having said that, I do feel like an extraordinary amount of sympathy for Adam Driver's character because I think he did some shitty things, but everything is getting to him so much, and I think the film does it spends a lot of time focusing on what it's like to have your child taken away from you, and to also deal with your child wanting to spend more time with the other person that you were in a relationship with as well. And I think it probably brings up, I guess, kind of anxieties that I would have as well if I was in a similar case. And I think the film just, it does a really good job kind of exploring that. Not to mention the two central performances are both excellent. I mean, you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I think Adam Driver in particular was great. I think it's probably my favourite Scarlett Johansson performance as well.
You don't think Jojo Rabbit?
No. And I really enjoyed the way the film starts with them recounting their kind of the things they liked about each other.
Definitely.
And I think the way it cuts to the kind of reality from that kind of dream world. I think it's constantly playing with the way every time you see New York in the film, it's like picture book kind of place, and then also the first time a few times you see California, and then you kind of start to see like the griminess of both of those. I think I don't like it as much as you, and the joke version is because I watched Blue Valentine before. It's not the I don't think it's the real version. I think I do have a few problems with it. I think the fact it's so obviously Noah Baumbach's own retelling of his divorce with Jennifer Jason Leigh, which is kind of, I don't want to get into the mechanics of that because a lot of it is speculation, but I think kind of him trying to make a film where he like reconciles his own guilt about that is like an interesting move, and I did feel a little bit uncomfortable at times, but
I think I have a lot of respect for him for doing that as well. And actually, I don't think it occurred to me a lot really, because I understand the idea of. Well, I really understand the idea of feeling like you made a mistake or did something stupid, and then wanting to try and explore that through some medium of writing in order to kind of get how you feel about it onto paper. And I think I just have respect. Okay, a subtle nod, sure.
So I don't know. But I also feel like Charlie's the character's name, right? I feel like the presentation of him in the film is almost like he's definitely evaluating his own kind of toxic behavior a lot of time. And I've seen a lot of people kind of being like, oh, I hate that I relate to him so much. Because it's very much like the kind of, he's like a tortured artist. And
everyone's got a call him genius.
Yep, it's that joke. But the film is very much, he is the arc. It's about him learning to compromise. And they kind of get, I think I named it Nicole.
Nicole.
They kind of get through her arc very quickly. Whereas she needs to kind of escape from him. She needs her own freedom and independence because he's almost kind of controlling, not in an overtly abusive way, but I like it.
But it is all about what he wants and in the direction that he felt the couple should go. That's kind of what ripped them both apart from one another.
Yeah, and I think you said it's a very nuanced film. I did always feel like the film may not. I feel the film spends more time with Charlie, which is to give the audience an understanding of him and how he's feeling, how the situation's told. But the situation, I feel like it was always in Nicole's favour. I felt like she was always justified. Maybe she made the mistake in turning to Laura Dern from Big Little Lies as a ruthless lawyer. My sympathies were always more with her, even though I think the Adam Driver kind of section is probably more what the film's going for.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. I do think that Nicole. I would really agree with that. I think the film does focus more on Charlie, and his arc is, I think, explored over the duration of the film a lot more, and hers is kind of wrapped up a bit more. But But that's not to say that I feel like she's wasted in any way.
Oh no, I just
I didn't think he was saying that at all either. I was just saying for the record.
I love that we explore her first, so that every time she kind of appears again, you completely understand and empathise with her. Because there's definitely a version of this film that Bojack would have made when he was less mature, aka before he met Greta Gerwig, who's a better director and writer, where it's entirely his point of view, and you almost feel some distance for her, and maybe some kind of. I haven't seen Kramer vs. Kramer, but I feel like that's what Kramer vs. Kramer is, right? It's more you get the man side of the story.
Yeah, well, I saw Kramer vs. Kramer a really long time ago, and I remember so little of it. But it is a very, very similar story, and I think you probably do get more Hoffman in the Street. I'd have to rewatch it. It's been so long. I don't remember much of it at all. But yeah, I think it is a very similar thing in that way.
Yeah. So there's definitely a version of this film that's a lot worse, but I think it's all the better for kind of starting the first act it has.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's the scene from the film as well, which I've actually.
Is this the being alive scene that you don't like?
Being alive.
When Adam Driver sings "Being Alive."
No. It's the well-known scene where they actually have it out. And it's so cathartic to see that, because up until that point, it's been so kind of. I wouldn't say that it's perfect, but it's been well mediated enough so that there isn't this kind of okay, let's have it out, and I'll tell you exactly how I feel about you. And then when you actually do get that scene where it starts off kind of fairly polite and fairly calm, and it just builds and builds and builds, and it's not done abruptly in any way, shape or form. It's executed just so perfectly because of how gradual it is, just because of how much it lifts and lifts and lifts. And I think that someone could watch that scene out of context. I think that it's extremely overdramatic, but because you have the build-up, even with the accusations that they throw each other about wishing that they were dead and things like that, it's not unrealistic. Like, I feel like in the situation they have would be so kind of affecting and impacting that you would just say things like that. And I think it does that well. Like when he just punches the wall and just shouts at it, "But you're winning," and I think it's just like. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I think the fact that it was like clipped out of context is kind of like annoying.
Yeah, definitely.
It was such a weird kind of meme. Being like, oh, this is a bad scene. It's like we have to watch like the hour and 20 minutes before. Yeah, I think this is a good film. The one thing I really don't like is the score. I think the Randy Newman score just feels like Toy Story, and it feels very basic Hollywood, and I think the story is a lot more complex. And I know they're alluding to that with some of the references and where the film takes place. They're kind of alluding to old Hollywood a lot. But I really don't like the score. I think the score kind of undercuts a lot of the weight and the drama. I don't know how to score this film, to be perfectly honest, but I really did. It's rare that I get taken out of a film because of the music. I felt like this was kind of telling me how to feel a little bit too much.
I understand.
Which is fine for Toy Story and Pixar and for things for children. But when this is like an adult drama, I felt like the score didn't work. I like the scene when he cuts his hand. I think that's incredibly cringy and hard to watch. Yeah. And
it's when he tells his son that everything's okay. He's just like lying on the floor when his son leaves the room as well.
Yeah, it's some of the Meyerowitz story kind of like awkwardness that I think Bojack's got good at. I really need to see more of his films.
I do as well.
And God, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I really like Being Alive as like the end of Charlie's kind of arc. That moment. Again, it's slightly awkward where he sings on the karaoke.
Yeah.
But
I think that is why I'm not a massive fan, because it is awkward. And it's like, just get to see it.
I do like that.
Yeah. There's some other scenes in the film as well that are really well executed for different reasons as well, and it's almost like I think the choreography is excellent as well. And the scene I'm thinking of in particular is one where she has a divorce paper, where there's almost like another excuse for him not to see the papers. Yeah, there's something else stopping. It'll be a character from the scene. It'll be
with the mum and sister.
Yeah, sure, and just everything stopping it. And then when you finally get it, it's like this is not how I wanted you to see this firsthand. I think it just captures how messy and awkward things can be. I've never been through a divorce myself, but I can just believe it being that way. So yeah, really good film.
Yes, it is a pretty good film. Alright, should we do my number 2?
We can, yeah.
So my number 2 is The Farewell, which is a film that came out. Actually, it's a film it was so bad I walked out of it. So I returned to Sheffield, and I tried to see this film at an Odeon on like Saturday, like 3. And I have a limitless card, so I can kind of get 2 tickets concurrently from Odeon, so it's fine. So I went to see it, and then there were too many annoying people. Like they were being it's like the most annoying. Like it was a bunch of kids like standing up, running around like. It's like Ethan when he went to see Suburban, spilling their coins. Like they were just like, it was just ridiculous. And like I just couldn't concentrate on the film. And I'm like, look, I can just get a ticket from Odeon like I'm in the middle of a day on Monday. Like it's only wasting my time. It's not wasting any money.
Didn't you hear one of them say, "Is this a foreign language film?"
Yeah. I was just like, yes, it is. So yeah, I left having enjoyed the first scene, and then I went back and revisited it. And I was the only person in there, which is a different experience, yeah. And this film kind of just hit me. It's that kind of Ladybird feeling where I'm like, oh, okay, I think I've, even though this isn't a film of which any of the circumstances even remotely relate to me, this film just hit me in that kind of deep, not just a film about death, but a film about family, kind of where you're from. It really did hit me. Yeah, and I when watching the first scene again, I realised that everything that Nai and Billy say to each other on the phone is a lie. Like every single thing in that conversation, it's just them lying to each other, and it's really a film about lying. Because the premise, which I'm assuming you know, so I'm not going to explain it, is such a brilliant premise for a film. It's almost you can very easily sell the film on that premise, and it took the director Lulu Wang. Doing like a podcast series telling this story for them to actually allow her to make the film.
Yeah, I remember watching the director's roundtable, and she talked like quite extensively towards the end about what it was like making the farewell and how it got made and stuff. So,
she comes across really well now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think she's a very exciting first-time filmmaker. Also, she's in the greatest power couple of all time with Barry Jenkins.
Yeah,
which is like those two versus Bojack and Gurley. But I think these two are better. Yeah.
It's Todd Phillips and whoever he's married to.
Why have you seen this?
He wants to be married to Scorsese, doesn't he?
We'll talk about Joker when we get to our number ones. You won't get that. But yeah, I think the farewell is brilliant. I think maybe a bit heavy-handed at times, but the clash of kind of east versus west, the kind of like where you're from versus where you grew up, like the conflict of being dual identity. The idea of kind of the selfishness of putting emotional burdens on people, whereas in the East they kind of carry that more. It's a different thing. Whereas like the kind of it's more like the kind of freedom and the emotional freedom of America versus the more kind of not repressed but subtler, quieter.
Yeah, I guess it's stricter. Maybe would that be a better way?
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's a very
more traditionalist.
Yeah,
maybe, yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for the film because obviously I'm not Chinese, but it felt very authentic to me, and I think the film felt very compassionate. I've never seen a film that in such short runtime painted such a dynamic and interesting portrait of so many characters. It's definitely something that I think is a particular interest of mine. The fact that there's so many of these family members, and I almost immediately know who just from like brief interactions who they were related to, and if I don't know that, I know like they're not archetypes, but I know who they are. I know who likes who doesn't like who, and I think that's really interesting, and like, seeing the character dynamics play out. I think the dad who's the president in Arrival, I think his name is Zimai. I thought from such limited screen time, he gave one of my favorite performances of the year. I think Nai is brilliant. I think that I think she's because she's kind of the whole film is predicated around you not wondering if she knows or not.
Yeah,
it's such a brilliant performance. Awkwafina is like, I mean, she's a comedian first and foremost, and she's completely unrecognizable in this film. Again, that's one of my favorite performances of the year. Just the way she carries herself and her mannerisms, you can just see it's trying to like burst out of her, and she's like doing everything she can to kind of push down what she wants to do. I think the wedding scene is one of the funniest and saddest scenes. Like in terms of blending horror and comedy, in terms of blending tragedy and comedy, that wedding scene goes from being like really funny to really sad, like very quickly. And I just loved all that. I loved the use of music. I thought the soundtrack was brilliant. I didn't know how it was going to end because obviously it's a true story. So I thought the ending was really good. You can say I do get that people have a problem with the ending because there's almost two endings in a way. There's the they're driving away and it's probably the last time that she'll see kind of Nai, versus the actual kind of like, oh, she's fine. the real Nai is fine ending. which I've seen some criticism leveled at that. Personally, I kind of disagree. I think both are kind of very effective when she kind of drives away, and it's filmed in a way that just makes it feel like a memory already. Like it's almost filmed like slightly. It's not perfect, like in the same way that memories are. I think that's great. Also, speaking of that, just the scenes where she's kind of driving around and like remembering her childhood are great. And then that leads to the confrontation with her mum, which I think is another great scene where she's kind of asking like, why did you take me away? And like I think their kind of relationship is definitely very interesting. And she gives like an almost entirely different perspective, like the way she thinks she's like being selfish for showing emotion almost. I felt like that not only was interesting, was like emotionally engaging. I really liked the film. I won't talk for too much longer though, because we've gone on for quite a long time.
Yeah, we have. I don't think I have that much to say about it. I saw it by myself. I think it's a pretty good film. I don't like it nearly as much as you do. And there are a couple of reasons for that. The things I do like are, you're right, I think the performances are really good. I think that the music is also really good. And the thing that interested me the most about it was far and away the difference between the United States and the difference between China. And it's not subtle at all. I think it gets explored and talked about quite frequently in the different customs you'd have over there. In fact, I literally couldn't believe it when they said that, and I'm sure that this is actually true, that in China, you can actually make it so that the person who suffers from the terminal illness doesn't know they have a terminal illness. And that strikes me as quite insane, actually, to think about. And you're right, I was sold on the premise, and I thought I was going to really love it, and I just didn't. I just didn't think it was. I didn't think it was that brilliant. And I think it partly is to do with the ending. I think the fact that she's okay kind of. I guess I have the popular opinion of it kind of hinders the emotional impact and weight of everything that you see up until that moment. That she's just okay. But I won't lie and say that I do still think about that. Maybe not often, but I do. It does cross my mind, every now and then. I'll be thinking, why did Lulu Wang choose to keep her alive? What was the purpose behind it?
I mean, she was alive in real life, right? Because it's based on a true story.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess that sorts that question. Yeah, okay, that makes sense now, I guess. But I thought it was just like a fictional story. I'm sure that there was definitely some aspect of it being about her and her growing up.
Definitely. I think it's in the same way Lady Bird is like a dramatized version of like someone's real life events.
Yeah.
So like that Lulu Wang has this background, and that it's basically about her now. In the same way that Greta Gerwig was born in Sacramento and then goes to New York.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of. These details are true. Obviously, this is not the director. This is a fictional character, and like they need to have a character arc written and stuff. But.
Definitely. And you're right. Awkwafina's character is. You feel such a sense of frustration for her because she's being kind of made by her family to go along with this when it's so clear that she just wants to tell her grandmother that she's going to die or that she almost certainly will die because she has a terminal illness. And all the way through the films, you kind of see those brief cracks and those instances where you feel like she might almost say something, but she stops herself because she still has that, I guess, feeling duty to her family. And those moments are really, really interesting. The other thing as well is that I feel like the film, again, I think this is something that people have also talked about before. We certainly talked about it. I think the story would have benefited by her being the one that was getting married and that was made to be married, because then I feel like what would have happened was that there would have been more of a direct sense of, I guess, guilt and responsibility that she felt like she would have not telling her grandmother about this, because now she's not just a part of the lie, but she is the lie. Basically, the marriage is something that she's actively involved in.
Yeah.
And I think that would serve as another interesting kind of layer to add on top of everything.
Yeah, I do get that. I feel like the second, first of all, I don't agree because obviously it's based somewhat on true events, or based on a true lie, I think is the tagline of the film, which is a good one. And like, I think at that point you kind of suddenly have to have her have a relationship with someone. And I think one of the best things about this film is that at no point does it hint or suggest that Billy has romantic feelings for anyone in the film. It's entirely about her relationship with her family and what she wants to do. She wants to be an artist.
But then it would work because she's not really in love with her cousin. That would just No,
not The Godfather Part 3.
Yeah, what the fuck was I thinking about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, but I know what you mean. I know it's
know
so it's like she's getting married to someone,
Yeah.
and then suddenly they have to be a character and they have to have scenes with them a bit. I think the idea of the Japanese girlfriend who has no idea what's going on, who just looks terrified about everything, is really funny.
Yeah.
And then those two have some chemistry, but they still manage to look so awkward together. That couple, like you can tell they're a young couple and they like each other, but you can tell that they don't love each other. And I feel like in the limited moments between them, I do like that. But I do see what you mean. I like how it's not I feel like the more conventional Hollywood version of this film is the version in which she's the one getting married. And I feel like it's almost a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not. I don't really see it as like a Hollywood film. I see it as quite indie.
Yeah,
so I still think it would have worked being, I guess, that conventional idea.
Yeah.
It still wouldn't have come across too Hollywood, I think.
I think it's an A24. I also one thing I think probably the last thing I have to say about this film is it kind of annoys me how it's getting like it's a film that the predominant language is not English. But I wouldn't say this is a.
It's not foreign language.
It's not a foreign language film.
No,
I think it's an American studio.
Definitely.
It's an Asian American film, with a largely Asian American cast, telling a story which is about kind of China and America, and to see it kind of thrown in like it shouldn't not best picture but best foreign language. I feel like that's like I don't know, not disrespectful.
I mean, it should have got a best picture nom anyway.
Yeah, I mean this film is almost about that idea that like you can't be seen as being from two places, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Little Wang should have definitely got director's nom.
Yeah,
well,
I think a
it
writer.
is a really well directed.
I think it should have been a writer and director. I think a lot of the. I actually think I wouldn't call it. Actually, I will just call it racist. I think it's like racist that I think a lot of Asian actors don't get noticed in the acting categories. Like to give Parasite as many Oscars as it did, and there's not a single nomination. And same with this film. I feel like there's almost like as an ensemble, well done, but I can't be bothered to learn your names. There's that attitude.
Yeah.
Towards, I feel like
that.
the fact that I don't know every actor in Parasite's name, I definitely should, is like part of the problem because they're all so good in that.
Yeah.
And it's it is. I think that's the next barrier to get over, where actors from kind of different countries get nominated for performances that aren't in the English language. Because I mean, it can be slightly. I mean, we definitely talked about an Old Boy. There's different like that performance is like not one that you can do in the English language. I think we should probably move on to our number ones. And
we just do Parasite instead.
Next year, things to look forward to. So my number one would be Parasite if it came out in the UK this year.
Probably be mine as well.
Yeah, but it didn't. It didn't come out in the UK. But you know what did? Little Women, which is my number one film of the year, which was the first film I saw in 2020 actually, ironically.
Nice.
But it came out Christmas Day. Boxing Day. Christmas Day in the US. So technically it's a 2019 film. So yeah, it's obviously an adaptation of Little Women. I'd like to read the book so I can see how good of an adaptation, but just from watching the film, I can tell it's pretty damn good. Obviously, you've got the baseline of the story to go off, which is a great story. It's about four sisters growing up in the aftermath of the American Civil War. The book follows the conventional story of them growing up and then them as kind of adults, and you follow their lives. But this film, it jumps around between the two narratives, kind of following them both linearly, but kind of shifting things around so that they tell parallel stories, which if you know about The Godfather Part 2, you know it's one of my favourite narrative devices. And I feel like it's a film full of such warmth, full of I think the actual story it's telling is very interesting, but what's way more interesting is the way it's being told, the way it's being performed. I think everyone gives a great performance. Emma Watson, not the best performance, but I wouldn't call it a bad performance.
No, I don't think she's bad. But I think a lot of that. I mean, I don't think Emma Watson is a particularly good actress, but in fairness to her, I think her character is definitely is probably the least interesting one to do. There isn't a lot of, I think, complexity to her that you would get with the three others, but especially Joe and Amy. Definitely Joe and Amy.
So those two.
In fact, Florence Pugh got a lot of credit for making a character in the book that was supposedly quite antagonistic into a character that was so three-dimensional. And that'll probably be because of the writing for sure.
Yeah. But I think the performance as well. I think that as well as the writing being fantastic, I think all the performances are great. I love how this film looks. Every frame of painting, and but it's shot on film, and you can really tell the lighting is so brilliant. I love the way the subtle, not too subtle, but the lighting.
Spielberg told him to shoot film, right?
I think it was. I think it was that. But it's the past and present kind of. The past looks like a memory. Everything's idealized in that way, and it very closely follows the dialogue from the book versus the present, which feels a lot colder. There are moments of warmth, definitely, but it's just the way it's framed. Also, the intercutting allows probably one of the best scenes, maybe the best scene of the year, which is the scene in which kind of Jo comes down the stairs to see that her sister is kind of better, Beth, and then you have the same scene where she's died. And apparently in the book, they just had the problem where you have the same arc for Beth where she gets sick, but then she gets better, and it's the same thing. So like kind of overlapping those stories, I think is great.
It's a stroke of genius.
Yeah, and it signifies a great turning point where kind of Jo kind of finally tells her story, you know, and I think I do feel like I'm jumping around a lot, like a tiny bit like the film, but the way the ending kind of marries Louisa May Alcott's real life with the character of Jo is great, because obviously in the book Little Women, Jo gets married. In real life, Louisa May Alcott didn't, and there's almost no indication that she was straight or even like interested in anyone. And like to have it both ways, to be like it's very much about kind of both Louisa May Alcott and Jo, because obviously Little Women is the story of Louisa May Alcott being like, no, I'm not with anyone. I'm going to be completely free. And also the ridiculous ending that the book Little Woman has, where Louisa May Alcott's like, fine, but I'm not putting her with Laurie. I'm putting her with this other guy because it was serialized. Yeah. So she kind of invents this professor character who I think in the book was meant to be like a bit of an older guy, but in this, he's obviously very attractive as well. Everyone in this film is. Apart
from Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah. God, when Bob Odenkirk comes through the door, we are all Bob Odenkirk's Little Women. It's like, how is Bob Odenkirk the father? I can't believe Laura Dern. Like, Bob Odenkirk is the dad.
It should have been like Brad Pitt strolling through those doors or something like that.
Yeah.
Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad.
That was very funny. Yeah. But just the way that ending, and it mirrors the themes of kind of financial independence, you know, a woman's place in the world at the time, the fact that they had so little freedom, you know, there's that
the fact that you had to write a story where the woman has to just get married, otherwise it will not sell as well.
Yeah, and like, and I guess things are changing here after the Civil War, you know, there's much more kind of about the liberation of women, and it's such a popular and successful popular book, and to adapt it not too long after the last adaptation, and kind of bring such a freshness, and it feels incredibly modern, even though a lot of the script is from the book, which was written so long ago. Yeah, I feel like it's pretty much.
I think Greta Gerwig is a very kind of like contemporary director. Like her films do just feel like they've been shot yesterday, sort of thing.
Well, in the UK, Lady Bird was 2018, so my favourite films of the last 2 years have been Greta Gerwig films, which is insane. I think I don't think this is as good as Lady Bird. Lady Bird is an original, but to adapt a work this well, I think Greta Gerwig is maybe my favourite writer who's writing films right now. Like, I can't wait to see what she does next. Actually, I know what she's doing. She's doing Barbie. Who knows how that will go? But yeah, I really do. I think this is just great, and I want to hear what Ethan has to say.
Yeah, I think it's very good. I think it's gone up in my estimation since I actually saw it as well. I read, I think it was Hannah's Letterboxd review for it, and I think that she hit. I think her review was so accurate as well, and it was just. I think it was a particular word that she used, and it was just the word delightful. And I thought, actually, yeah, it's unbelievably fun, that film. I mean, even when it's sad, like, it's so upbeat and cheerful, and the performances are also kind of like, I don't know, there's just a warmth about them that I feel like I've not really seen in the film at all this year. Like, to see actors who are portraying these characters with such a level of enthusiasm, it's just really, really compelling to watch. Especially from the central team, especially from Saoirse Ronan and Florence Pugh, who really just get the fucking job done. There's a lot of other things about it that I do like a lot. There's a particular monologue towards the end where I think Saoirse Ronan kind of regrets not getting with Laurie. I refuse to use the actor's name. And it's a great monologue because there's such a sense of independence and a sense of like a sense of wanting to be by herself and do things by herself, but at the same time feeling extremely lonely. And I think it conveys a vulnerability that is just so universal as well, and it really, really touched me. I think also when Harry talked about the juxtaposition between Beth getting better and then Beth dying, is manipulated so well by Greta Gerwig, and it really does hit because, like you say, you have kind of the stark lighting, contrasted with, I guess, a more warm lighting, and everything is just like it gets to that point where you know that she's dead, but you just want her to like improve that second time around, and it doesn't come, and it's just really, really, really sad.
I think the music really helps as well. I think it's scored very well. It's quite understated, but yeah, in that moment, I think the music really kind of everything comes together. Like it's the way that the production design to where she has to round that corner, the performances, the way it's been blocked. Obviously, writing the idea, but the direction is really what kind of ties it together to be kind of one of the saddest kind of character deaths that's expressed completely visually.
Yeah, definitely. I don't feel like I have much more to say, except that while I was watching this, I had a really, really good time in a way that I didn't expect I would. I knew that I would like it, but that was pretty much primarily just because Greta Gerwig wrote the script for it, and I really like Lady Bird. But I didn't think too much of it. I didn't know the story at all. But now having watched the film, I think the story is definitely one of the stronger aspects of it. I feel like with the four sisters, it explores what feels like such an epic tale as well. And I would really, really love to read the book to see how different they are, because it's the way that it time jumps, and you start off with them being kids and being such a close knit group of sisters, and then them all kind of going off and doing their own separate things, and then coming back at specific intervals when someone's died or something tragic has happened, or something completely opposite, if someone's getting married, for instance. And I think the film, and I imagine the book, would have such a sense of scope as a result of that. And I think it would definitely paint like a very vivid picture of, I guess, the American Civil War and what families were like around that time. That's something I'd be interested to read about.
Yeah, I think like we've pretty much said everything I have to say, because there's very few problems with it, apart from Florence Pugh playing a 13-year-old. But even then, I'm willing to go along with it, because Florence Pugh can play whoever she wants. She's that good. There's so many kind of little moments from every character. I know that Emma Watson's maybe not the best thing, but I think that her character takes the most conventional route for women at the time. But she doesn't marry for wealth; she marries for love. And I think James Norton as well doesn't have much to do, but the scenes they do have together, I think I do like. Chris Cooper has a few scenes, like very few, but I think he kind of sells it, and his kind of connection with Beth. Give it all the scenes with the piano. I feel like they're really important. And the moment where he can't come in the house is such a small moment. I think this film does such a good job of highlighting the small kind of human moments that make it feel so inviting and so warm.
Yeah, God, with the piano in the house, it's like just when you see that, it's such a kind deed. It just makes you feel so kind of happy and heartwarming inside, and that's just what the whole film is as well. I know we already talk about the performances so much, but the characterization is just outstanding. Like, you've got the actresses playing themselves when they're younger, and then when they're at that age, but the younger versions of themselves, they're playing with such a kind of, there's so much energy in them that you actually do forget that they're like 30 years old or so. That they actually, it's only after that, right? That scene where Florence Pugh pretends to be like a primary school kid or whatever.
Well, yeah, the problem with that scene is that she's surrounded by people who are a lot younger.
Yeah. But it's a strange thing to say, but it only felt weird to me in retrospect. While I was watching it, I was just like, yeah, I'll go along with this sort of thing. So I think their character, it's just everything. It's everything. Their characterization when they're younger is perfect, and it's so different to when they're adults. That's the thing, right? I talked to people who were annoyed and they were frustrated with the film because they felt like it was difficult to tell when something was set in the past and when something was set during the present day. And I just didn't find that difficult at all. I could see how it could, but everything down to the lighting and the set design, but it's to do with the performances. Like, they're playing themselves, but they're clearly playing characters that I guess are more kind of bursting full of energy. I think it's probably Florence Pugh. I think the older version of her, there's kind of like a brooding sense of kind of unfairness around her. Like she feels like she was stepped on, I guess, and she kind of feels like she comes second to Joe.
I think her monologue as well. I think was almost as good, if not better, than Joe's kind of.
Oh, is that the one? Is that one with Laurie in the room?
Yeah.
Where she's that is good.
Because it's like, if someone with her skills as an artist was a man, they would make it as a mediocre artist. But the fact that as a woman she has to be the absolute best to even,
she can't just be substandard.
Yeah, to even like have a chance at like pursuing what she wants, and like the kind of double standard at the time. I think that's a great monologue. And I think they managed to sell Timothée Chalamet as Laurie. I don't know why Ethan doesn't like him.
I just think he's a poor actor. I don't like him.
I think he's very good in this film. I think he sells the chemistry, the almost kind of like his one true love with Beth, not Beth. God, what am I?
Joe.
There we go. With Joe. But then you totally believe his relationship with Amy as well. I don't really have much.
I think it's only because I'm comparing in my head to the Christian Bale version of that character, which I'm sure I'd probably like a hell of a lot more than did.
Christian Bale's just scary though. He can't play Laurie. He's too scary. All right. So if we're saying that Little Women is an unconventional modern spin on a kind of costume drama, Ethan.
So my favourite film of 2019 was The Favourite,
which came out on the 1st of January 2019.
Yeah, just got in there into the year. The Favourite, right. So I've seen this film one time. It was with you, Harry, and it's going to be hard for me to talk about this because I thought it was very good when I watched it, but over time it just went up. And there was nothing that I kind of consumed in the meantime that made me like it more. I didn't watch any interviews. It wasn't anything like that. It was just thinking about the film, and I just don't know what it was that made it become my favourite film of the year. But I actually think it's probably one of my maybe 5 favourite films of the decade as well. And there'll be a few reasons for that. Performances, obviously. And I think Yorgos Lanthimos is a very, very talented director, and I think he kind of, I think costume dramas and period dramas and things like that are sort of genres and settings that I don't think I find them that fascinating. Like when I think of that, I think of, I guess, like novels by Jane Austen or one of the Bronte sisters. I'm sure they're extremely well written, but I just don't think it'd be my thing. So to come along and watch something that kind of surprised me like that in that way, really sort of blew me away, because his take on it, you have all the quirkiness and the eccentricity of a Yorgos Lanthimos film, but then you match it with that, I guess, period drama setting, and it just combines to create like a very unique piece of work. I think at the core of this film, what really, really, really hooked me, and this will be because of the 3 performances, but it will be the power dynamic between the 3 performances. Because what you've got Olivia Colman, who is the Queen, she's Queen Anne, and you have these 2 other women either side of her who are both grappling for control, and they'll do things to kind of manipulate her and try and get them to be more on their side so that they can kind of be the puppet master. But then as the film goes on, because the characters change internally so much, or I guess you could argue reveal their true colours, you're kind of, the way that you feel about your characters and the way that your opinions lie with them changes, I think, quite often. Towards the beginning, I think Rachel Weisz comes off as quite a cold character who doesn't really care about Queen Anne, and is just in it for the power. And Emma Stone seems like she's a lot more kind of, I guess, modest and kind. But as the film goes on, you realise, actually, I think it's with that letter towards the end that Rachel Weisz writes to Queen Anne, the table's completely changed, and Emma Stone basically becomes this monstrous character who seems to kind of occupy the space of what you imagine someone in the bourgeoisie to be so exceptionally well towards the end of the film. And Rachel Weisz is the one who has to leave the country, or well, I can't remember what she has to leave. I'm pretty sure it is the country. Like I said, it's been over a year since I watched this. And it's just the way that the story somehow finds new ways to just keep you engaged. And that's what it's all about. And I think Lanthimos did a great job with it as well. It's not just that. I think, well, we've mentioned the performances are great. Olivia Colman, of course, won the Best Actress Oscar for it, which was, I mean, it was really uplifting because you don't think of an actress from Peep Show to win Oscars, and she went ahead and did, and her performance is just incredible. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I completely agree with everything you've said. I think the very ending is the kind of climax of what you were saying about the power, where Olivia Colman, I think, sees, maybe for the first time, or maybe she saw before, kind of what Emma Stone is, what her character is when she sees him. Like, did she kick the bunny, or she steps on it, right? She steps on the bunny.
It's something like that.
Yeah, and then she asserts power, and you can kind of, I think the final image of the film is like their faces with the rabbits, and it kind of, until it becomes just darkness. I think it's a very kind of great, I want to say powerful final shot, but no, it's a great final shot that encapsulates the kind of the power dynamic really well. And it's a very kind of not upsetting ending, maybe.
I guess it's kind of distressing.
Yeah,
in some sense.
Yeah. It's kind of the normality has kind of been, everything's off kilter. And I think,
in fact, a lot of the camera angles work with that off kilter feel. There's kind of like a spherical feel.
The fisheye lens, so it's very weird. And I get that some people don't like them. I think all the stylistic flourishes that Lanthimos does in this film work for me anyway. I find them really engaging. I think talking about it, I'm going to realise that a film I saw twice in January last year might be like higher on my list, because it's in my top 10. I think it's at 8, maybe. But I could definitely see on a rewatch it going up to 7, maybe even 6 on my 10th of the year. I think it's great. I think, like you said, the performances are great. The way the dynamics shift, the way that every man in the film is just a complete idiot who's like a pawn in their game, I think is great, because like there's so many other films where it's completely the other way with the genders.
That's true. Yeah.
I think I think Rachel Weisz is I haven't really seen her in many things, so she was like for me, I was like discovering kind of Rachel Weisz through this film, and I thought she was maybe my favorite character in the film, and the way she's almost like, you don't like her at the start because there's like a coldness to her, and she's like a ruthless political operator, and like she
speaks very bluntly as well.
It's like she's been in a position of power so long that she's almost taking what she has for granted, and then when she loses it, you realise that like she genuinely did care about
kind of lost her way a little bit.
She cared about Anne. Obviously, Olivia Colman is just unbelievably good. Like, it's one of those like There Will Be Blood performances where the film is just the performance, like the dynamism. I can't say that word. Anyway, it's so dynamic. The film is like it's like pulled towards it. It's like it's brilliant. Like she's almost childlike in the way she's kind of her emotions shift from being like happy to being distressed, and the way she's kind of being controlled by Rachel Weisz. She's almost keeping her in check, and it's almost kind of comical. Well, it is comical at times, but suddenly you kind of get her backstory about her losing these children. You realise that this so-called madness is really just trauma, and that she's had such a sad life, and she's this is how she's coping, and she's kind of not given up. This makes her happy. This is how she's living her life, and no one person should have the amount of power she has, and it's almost like a complete burden for her. And I think that there's so much nuance in that performance, and she really is great, and like she's almost a plot. It's like she's being pulled either way. And Emma Stone's kind of rise to power is fun and entertaining to watch. I like her relationship with Nicholas Hoult. I think a lot of the comedy comes from that. There's a lot of weird stylistic flourishes. Isn't Glenn from The Thick of It's in It?
Leader of the opposition.
Yeah, holding Horatio the duck.
Oh my god.
Naked Tory.
It's funny how we've only it's taken us this long to actually mention that the film is so funny.
It's really
funny. The
funny.
part where the dancing is the most the most awkward dance I've ever seen.
I've noticed.
It's so like over the top and exaggerated. Oh god.
Yeah.
It's and the scene where oh my god, the scene where Emma Stone is with that guy, right? the one who wants to marry her, and they're just in the woods playing, and he's trying to like kiss her. She just keeps like punching him. They're just playing around. She just eventually rides off and just leaves him by himself. It's a really really funny film.
Yeah, I think the humor is really great.
Yeah.
I do really I really think it's brilliant. I think it's a good, very good number one choice for you.
Yeah.
I think it mirrors my work nicely as well. It's been a good year for the old costume drama.
Yeah, definitely. I think also because you just reminded me as well that a large chunk of this film is kind of I'm trying to remember. It's to do. The French are trying to invade, right? Or there is something like that because there's a presence between.
It's like, should they go to war with France?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And then it's. I feel like the story could have so easily gone in the direction of, okay, let's focus on these two parties trying to have it out in the houses to try and invade France. But it feels like that's just the backdrop, and actually those scenes get used to kind of demonstrate Olivia Colman's mindset and how she feels about particular instances, and that completely depends on what Rachel Weisz, the grasp that she has on her, or the grasp that Emma Stone has on her. And the moment where I realised that this film was something special, the moment where it really, really just like grabbed my eyes out of their sockets, was, I think it might have been the second scene of Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone shooting, and I think it's the first moment where you see that Emma Stone is more than just this kind of like, I don't want to use that, maybe not the word innocent, but going from a character who is like, I guess, kind of well-natured to there being something beneath that. And it's the scene where she shoots the pigeon and the blood just spurts all over Rachel Weisz's face, and you can just see that look on Emma Stone's eyes, and you're like, okay, there's something deeper here that we need to explore. And that's when the film just really sold me.
It's one of those good titles as well, when you think about it. Yeah. Just the name of the favourite, I think, is great. I think the politics is all good, like the dynamic of, like, I think Rachel Weisz is very much with the Whigs, and Emma Smith with the Tories, I think is the way it works. But like the kind of the changing dynamic, and the fact that politics was pretty much governed by just like what one person kind of felt like. Obviously, I don't think it's historically accurate. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Queen Anne was a gay. Maybe she had this radical change because of the relationship with two women. I don't think that's the case. I think it's very stylized, but I think it's very emotionally true, and I think that's what matters. When you're trying to tell it, there's ways to tell a piece of this isn't a biography of Queen Anne, but it's a story about her, and it's all the way to tell it is through this lens, and it's asking way more interesting questions as well, just about power, and about the kind of relationships between the characters, who I think kind of represent different facets of people's relationship to power. And you can almost say that Emma Stone's perhaps revealed her true intentions, or you can say perhaps she is corrupted by becoming the favourite. But I think it's a very, very good film. I don't really know what's holding it back for me from being like number one on my list. I think it's just been a very strong year, and maybe it's because I haven't rewatched it since January. I've got it on Blu-ray. I really do want to rewatch it. Maybe when I do, I'll realise that this was better, and I just want to play my newer toys rather than my older one. Maybe it's that, but I don't know. I think it's great.
I'd also like to point out that while this film is my favourite from this year, or from 2019 rather, if I was allowed to accept it, The Lighthouse would be my favourite from that year.
All right. So should we talk about things to look forward to?
The Lighthouse.
Parasite.
Yeah.
Then we got Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems 1917, I guess, is pretty good.
And Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yeah, I need to watch that.
These films, this is my top 5 currently of 2020, and we're in March, and all these films are out in the UK.
Well, that would be my top 5, but then just take away Portrait of a Lady on Fire because I've not watched it.
Yeah. So what I said is, if 1917 is in my top 10 by the end of next year, it's going to be a very good year, because we'll definitely be talking about Parasite more. Should we maybe just very briefly talk about these films? Like, not too much. Or do you want to save that for next year?
We'll talk briefly about.
I mean, we like all of them, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I like all of them a lot.
Yeah.
And we could talk briefly what they're about, I guess.
So Parasite's Parasite, right? We won't spoil it here, but
yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Lighthouse.
I think you might like The Lighthouse more than me.
I think I do.
I liked it a lot more on the second time, so the third time I think might finally kind of push me.
Something new.
So yeah, I think the performance of The Lighthouse is so. We'll just do what we did now. Just be like, the performances are great. Uncut Gems.
Performances are great.
Uncut Gems is one of those films that, like, I just have the craving to watch it constantly. I could see it just, like, maybe even being my number 2. I mean, Portrait's there at the moment, but Uncut Gems, there's something about that film.
You're having this conversation with Ash, right?
I was, yeah. I really like Uncut Gems. Like, maybe it's not like as a piece of art, maybe it's not badly constructed.
I think my biggest problem with Uncut Gems, which we'll talk about in like a year's time, will be that while I think that character is extremely well played by Adam Sandler, there would be something stopping me from loving that film. And it's because of just how much of a tool that character is, and how addicted he is to the very thing that is. I know it's obvious to, it's like an obvious flaw to have in a character in a film. Just their downfall is what they enjoy doing, sure, what they're driven by doing. But there's something so just irritating about him finally coming to the realization.
It's a frustrating film. I get that.
So frustrating. He deserves to be
shot. The whole thing is. It's fine.
Do you know that bit out?
Nah, it's fine.
Okay.
The whole
Sorry, Asher.
The whole thing is. We'll just keep that. The whole thing is incredibly frustrating. I get why people don't like that, the kind of chaos and the energy of just being annoyed for 2 hours.
Yeah.
But there's something about the way that what Safdie's painting that world, and there's a very weird element of Uncut Gems that I've seen people like comment on, and other people say is not in this film. But there is like a mystic element to that film in the very weird synth soundtrack and the way it kind of opens and closes, going through the universe and through this gem, and the way that Kevin Garnett thinks this gem gives him superpowers, which is such a stupid sentence to say, but I love the kind of the scope of the story it's telling.
I agree.
I'm going to enjoy talking about it. 1917 is like
makes it look like a one shot. That's it.
Yeah. Technically, maybe one of the best films I've ever seen, but I think emotionally it just lacked that bit of something for me that made it like the best film.
I get that.
My dad thinks it's like the best film he's seen in like a very long time. Okay. I think it obviously worked for him.
Did you watch it at the cinema?
Yeah, we watched it together. Yeah, I mean it's very immersive. Yeah. It's Roger Deakins and Seth Oscar. And then Portrait, I won't say too much because Ethan hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
I'll just see.
I think I know the basic premise. So it's set on an island, right? And there's a woman who's going to be married off. But before she gets married off, someone wants a portrait of her, so they hire someone in to do it.
Well, kind of. It's like they paint the portrait and then send it off, and then if they like the look of the portrait, then they get married. That's how it works.
That's a cool premise.
Yeah. And we won't say much more about that, apart from the fact that at the end, God, I mean, it breaks your heart 3 times. It's a film that has 3 endings.
Jesus, I'm looking forward to this.
And they get
Casino Royale too.
But like the first ending, you're like, that was such a good ending, and then the second one, you're like, that was even better, and then the third one, which is the actual ending, it's like, fuck, it's so good. And it's also got maybe the best musical moment in a film for a very long time.
Is that the bonfire?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about the bonfire scene without having actually watched it.
I really can't wait for you to watch it.
Yeah, do you think so? Will you come and watch it at filming it with me?
Definitely. Okay. Definitely. And that would be the third time I've seen it as well.
Nice.
First time I think I've seen most of these films twice. I think the only one I haven't seen is 1917, which I'll probably watch again.
Do you think how did Parasite become what it did? Like that was a film that people talked about as being artsy, but then it just became like a mega.
I mean, I think it's the perfect blend of like a very enjoyable, easy to watch film, like baseline thriller with like deeper themes that are kind of obvious for anyone to get, with just like constructed in such a perfect way. And there's a lot more going on under the surface that you can think about. I think you just struck the perfect balance of like, even though it's a Korean film, so American general audiences probably wouldn't have seen it, but anyone who saw Parasite would like it. It's the way it's constructed and the story it's telling, and it's so well made and so well performed and shot, and it's funny and it's like scary at times, and it's so relevant, even though it's relevant to everyone. Yeah. So it's like I think it's nuanced. It's even if you got shit politics and you think the ending is like uplifting, and he's gonna get that house. Apparently they like people with bad politics, like capitalists and libertarians, who like the film because they can just not understand it. So yeah, it's really.
I feel like that's gonna be one that's gonna stay for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's
in the zeitgeist.
Definitely. It just feels like such a work of someone who just is completely in control of their craft.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the more of like the Bong Joon-ho films I watch, the more I'm like, oh yeah, he was building to this. Like everything has like a similar kind of theme, and he's using different genres to tell the story, and he finally just struck a chord with Parasite. Should we talk about TV before we go?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, so we won't spend too long on this.
All right.
Because last time you wanted to do top 5 miniseries. This time we've both got 3 shows each. We'll start with the ones we won't talk about too much, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
So I just wanted to quickly mention BoJack Horseman Season 6 Part 1, which came out in 2019. Part 2 came out in 2020. me and Johnny did a review podcast, so if you want to hear our thoughts, you can go listen to that. Yeah, it's great. It's a great conclusion to a fantastic show.
Still got to finish that.
You do. You've seen the first part, though?
Yeah, I've seen the first episode of the 8. Is it 8 episodes of the final?
Yeah, but you've seen the part that came out in 2019. The first 8.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah. And I've seen the first episode back, so I've got 7 left.
Sure. And I thought with you mentioned True Detective. Do you want to?
Yeah. So I watched the 3rd series this year. I think it was probably like maybe March or April time. I remember because there was like a really great week of uni where I basically saved up this series of 8 episodes, and just like in the evening before I went to bed, I could just watch one, and it was just a really great thing to look forward to each night. It's so good to see a return to form as well, because anyone who knows me well knows that I think the first series of True Detective is probably my favourite season of television. And the second series was just an unforgettably disappointing piece of trash in how convoluted it was, and the fact that Vince Vaughn is in it as well, going from Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson to that downgrade was really disappointing. Then they brought it back up because Mahershala Ali is a fantastic actor, and it went. You could tell that the showrunners were like, okay, the first series was a success, the second one was shit. Let's just try and have a lot of the first series and the 3rd series, because there is a lot of that. It's got non-linear storytelling. It's got, excellent makeup, but it's also got a case it's not set in a similar area, but it's still got that kind of like, I guess, deeply isolated kind of feel that the first series had, where you felt like you were. It's not really apocalyptic, but you felt like you were in a place that was dead, that
it's
was
like
kind of meaning and purpose.
It's like Desolate. It's like the dark side.
It is Desolate, yeah. I think it's set in the Ozarks as well, so it is kind of like that area, I guess. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. Actually, definitely recommend that. No, actually, the first series, watch that instead if you have to watch something.
All right. I just thought I'd quickly mention When They See Us, because you haven't seen it. So it's a Netflix miniseries created by Ava DuVernay, who's like known for like Selma and 13th. It's about 5 boys who are arrested. They're quite young. They range from about 11 to maybe 17, 18. They're really young, and they're arrested in Central Park after an incident happens that night. And they're falsely accused. And the first episode is them being falsely accused. And then the rest of the show, I'm not going to spoil where it goes. Safe to say, things don't go well for them, because they're young black men in a very racist country. I mean, pretty much every country is racist, but America at the time, which still is. And it's about the lives of them, their interiority, their experiences they go through. It's about the people who did it to them, and the kind of horribleness. And it also draws in on like a lot of contemporary kind of political stuff from the kind of sidelines, and it tells a story that I'm amazed that not everyone knows really well, because it's such a perversion of like morals, and it's such a horrific like story. I can't believe people don't know it.
I think I have a basic idea of what happened.
Yeah.
But what I know more about is the I think even more contemporary thing that Trump came out and condemned them again. I think recently.
I try not to spoil anything, because I think anyone who watches it will be surprised as to the extent of what happens.
Okay.
And but it's episode 4 is an hour and a half long, and is if it was a film, it would be one of the films of the year. It's such a good. It follows an actor, I can't remember his. I really should know. So I think it begins with a J. He's in Moonlight briefly in the middle section of Moonlight. But he's so good. And he plays the young and older version of the characters, because there is a time jump.
Sure.
And everyone else is recast, but he manages to play both so well. He's almost unrecognizable. It's really, really good. Really good.
I will definitely watch that soon, because you have been trying to get me.
It's worth watching across it's a hard watch, obviously. It's very heavy in subject matter, but it's worth, because it's 4 episodes. It's pretty well.
They're all about an hour and a half, right?
Yeah. Well, I'd say you can watch 1 and 2 together, and then watch 3, and then watch 4 in across 3 days. I'd say. Okay. That's the ideal way to watch it. I watched 1, 2, and then 3 and 4, but I'd say 4 is worth just watching it as a standalone thing.
All right.
When They See Us was brilliant. And the thing is with TV is I've seen about 7 or 8 shows this year. A lot of them, and most of them I liked. And just the way TV works is like everything I've seen I've liked, and there's so many things that I know. If I watched Chernobyl, I'd like that. I know there's
you should watch the 3rd series of True Detective, because I know you're a fan of the first one.
Yeah,
as well,
there's so many shows that that we would like. But there's 3 shows that we both watched that I think we'll probably talk about.
Actually, can I just mention about the third series really quickly
Yeah.
as well? I think the first series, we've definitely talked about this. There's kind of I'm kind of coming to your end a little bit more now in its treatment of female characters in the show, and I think the third series is definitely like so above and beyond that, because so much of the third series is devoted to the relationship between Mahershala Ali and the woman that he meets while working the case, and they strike a relationship together. And what the show does so well is it communicates this idea of them. The thing that brought them together was the case, and when the case stops being an active part of their life, you can see some sense of detachment between the two, because it felt like they were only together for the case, and when the case is gone, they don't really have much in common, and they kind of become a bit more isolated with one another. And she is so much more well written than, I guess, the Michelle Monaghan counterpart from the first series. So yeah, check it out. It's good.
Do you know what character does have good representation of female characters? Fleabag, of which I think the second season came out in 2019. I haven't actually fact checked it. I'm assuming it did. Let's just pretend it did.
Yeah.
Fleabag season 2 came out, and I didn't even know you'd seen it, to be perfectly honest. I don't think I've talked to you about the second season of Fleabag.
What are you kidding me?
We've talked about season 1.
So I mentioned this the other day when we were
doing the
rankings.
yes, that's when I knew
right.
that you'd seen it. But I feel like
Well, before then, you didn't know I'd watched it.
well, I've talked to you about season 1. I don't think I've ever talked to you about season 2.
Yeah, well, I watched it in like a day. Is that like 20 minutes?
What do you think of it?
I think it's great. I think the second series has even more of an episodic feel to it than the first series, in the sense that some of the episodes feel so kind of contained to one single event. The first one's around, it's like they've gone out for a meal, right? And the whole episode is just that one meal, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Such a good way to introduce you to all this. We have definitely talked about the second season now.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'm just coming back to it now.
Because we talked about the final episode, we talked about how Claire leaves that complete shitheel of a guy as well. So we definitely have.
He's the worst guy.
Yeah, he is. But the funny thing, I don't remember much of that. I don't remember much of the stuff in between. First episode was great.
It's the relationship between her and Andrew Scott, isn't it? As the hot priest trademark. And
well, his best thing is that he notices her moments when she's turns to the audience.
That's such a good. I hate to call something clever, but it's such a great moment.
Do you think Fleabag is the best British comedy show?
It's really good. I've had the first versus second season argument with people because I'm more of a first season fan person. That might have been because I watched these week by week and didn't binge them, whereas I binged the first season. But
I think the second series has the consistent theme of having Andrew Scott being quite a large presence. Where I feel like the first series it sort of dipped around more into different aspects of her life. But because the second series has Andrew Scott being such a prevalent aspect of it, it kind of feels quite focused in that way, and I think that's what I like about the second series more.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Still annoys me that Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Donald Glover.
I know you're gonna say.
Come on, those two made like the best 2 shows of the last year, and then they're put in Solo.
Oh, that's annoying.
The guys that made the Lego movie, and and then they fired the. Oh my god, it just annoys me so much. That could have been like the best Star Wars.
Yeah, it's a shame that the second series of Atlanta didn't come out in 2019. Because I could have spent...
We're getting a new one this year, though, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. But I could have spent like half an hour talking about Atlanta 2, because that show is phenomenally good. Like that might even be top 5 material. I've seen so many episodes of that. So.
Do you want to know what show we talked about a bunch last year, as it was airing week by week? Big Little Lies season 2.
Oh my god, yeah, Big Little Lies series 2.
Even though Andrew Arnold it kind of got fired from it.
Even though people don't think it's as good as the first series either, but I like the second one more. I think I like the direction that it takes the characters in. I think... Well, I had that moment, right? That halfway through it when I was watching it, where I almost stopped watching the show. And I almost stopped watching the show because I couldn't watch these characters have to go through their shit anymore, because it was just too hard to see it kind of ripping them apart. Just to see Shailene Woodley and Nicole Kidman have to go through the crap that they have to go through to try and, I guess, function again as normal people. It's just heartbreaking, and I almost stopped watching it, and then I didn't, because it's too good to stop watching it.
I think Zoe Kravitz like coming more into the second season makes the show a lot better.
You could tell in the first series she was like.
She's hardly in it.
Yeah, they just didn't know what to do.
Well, I think the first series is more of like a murder mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like they were definitely trying to like have some element of ambiguity, whereas this is much more about the characters. And I get the fact that like it's kind of torn between like being one creator trying to edit another creator's down, and maybe it would have been a different season if one person, probably Andrew Arnold, would have been better, had full authorial control.
It does have that kind of messy feel to it in the edit, doesn't it? I actually do agree with you.
I think but I think that the performances are still so good. I think that it's still just a very kind of, just when you're watching these characters who are so well kind of drawn out by each performer, just kind of interact with each other. And Mary Louise was such a brilliant addition, and she's kind of, you understand where she's coming from.
I mean, who would want to believe that their son was capable?
She's almost a representative for like one of the most evil characters. So you kind of hate her, and all the characters hate her, but you do understand her as well, which makes her such a great antagonist for everyone. I wasn't the biggest fan of how this season ended, but that's spoiling everything. I do hope they don't do another one though. I feel like two was good, and I don't want them to continue the storyline now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I do think the final episode, what I remember the most about it was that, it's not that it felt rushed, but it felt like they were kind of like putting a nice bow around everything. It kind of sort of had a ticking boxes feel to it. And it felt like people were getting kind of the happy endings that they definitely deserved, but I don't feel like they would have probably got.
Yeah, I do agree.
Yeah. I think actually, out of all five of them, so not including Meryl Streep's character, I think Bonnie is the only one who gets an ending that I'm really, really happy with. Because, actually, no, that's not even true, because her mum wakes up, doesn't she? I think that kind of... I don't know, I feel like that sort of treads on the moment earlier in the series where she reads out that letter that she wrote to her, about how much she despises her. And it kind of... I don't know, I feel like it hampers that moment a little bit. So, yeah, now that I think about it, I'm not really... I think Laura Dern, just because she gets to destroy that train set.
Oh yeah, we didn't. When we talked about Marriage Story, we didn't really talk about Laura Dern.
No, we didn't. She's really good in Marriage Story.
She's great in both. Like maybe she's playing a similar character, but she's so like fun to watch as this kind of she in the first season she's almost one of the villains, but she's got this dream life, and in this one she's on the side of everyone else. But to see her life kind of torn apart by her husband, just the resentment she has for him.
But I think you're right. I think the strongest thing about the second series is the way that they developed Bonnie so much to actually make her kind of a character. And I guess they feel they had to do that because she's the one who killed Stellan Skarsgård, right? So that's kind of the only reason that they felt the need to sort of, I guess, divulge her a little bit more, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's very much a show in which I'm nervous to watch it because it's like, it really frames the world as this horrible place, and like the kind of, I think the Moriarty novel, and she wrote a novella for this, so it's still based on that. Is it's very much about like the dark side of suburbia, and these kind of idealized upper middle class kind of women and their lives, and like the horrors of kind of what's actually happening.
It's a very Lynchian thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does have that Fleabag witness to it.
Yeah.
But I think that the fact that children are essentially raised by their environment and their parents, and when you've got this fucked up world and these people with their fucked up lives and these horrible things happening to them, and it's the moments in which their children say things that they shouldn't say, and they do things that they shouldn't do, which is what the show is predicated on, that are so terrifying because you realise that they're being shaped by these horrible forces, and they want to be protected. And I think every child performance in the show is pretty great. And I think that's the fundamental kind of heart of the show is everyone's relationships with their children. I think that's what makes it the hardest to watch for me. Obviously, there are like very graphic and violent scenes of like really horrible things, but I think it's that kind of it's the children being affected by it that really makes it like a hard to watch show.
Definitely. We've not talked about Nicole Kidman's character as well, and she's definitely one of the stronger ones.
She has a very weird accent, but yeah.
Oh god, yeah,
but she's brilliant.
Yeah, there is an inconsistency there in some scenes.
Yeah.
But I think probably the weaker The weaker two are probably Laura Dern and Reese Witherspoon.
I do like Reese Witherspoon.
No, she plays her character well, but I think the problem with Reese Witherspoon is that I feel like
I
don't like her as much because she's the one who fucked up, whereas I feel like with the other three, I like relate to them so much more because it's so unfair what's happened to them. Whereas Reese Witherspoon, the whole thing for her in the second series is she cheated on her husband.
Yeah.
She wants him back, and it's kind of like
I did enjoy that storyline there, and I think it's like
some good moments.
It's not just a show where it's like every man is bad as well. I think it's showing that everyone is like a fucked up person. The scene in which she like does a monologue about the meaning of Rainbow Connection, and it's like really embarrassing and funny, and then it just cuts to the audience and he's the only person in like sitting there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah. The thing about the Nicole Kidman character that makes her so great, I think, is I think it's the mindset that you see that she demonstrates in those court hearings, and I think it's when she talks about Skarsgård, because I feel like you get this surprisingly really well weighted viewpoint that she has, where she's kind of split on realizing that there were really terrible aspects about him, and he was an extremely abusive person. But at the same time, not that this like redeems him in any way, shape, or form, but she was someone who
he was a good father.
Loved. Yeah, and he was a good father.
And
having to see her try and separate these two in her head and try and condemn him, but then also remember that she genuinely loved him a lot, and the struggle that comes with that is really, really like engrossing, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a very nuanced show, I think.
Yeah, it's also really shit when that guy comes out of her like bedroom that one episode, and Meryl Streep's just there going, "Ooh, okay."
Oh yeah, that's the scene I like almost couldn't watch.
No, a scene that's worse than that is when she comes to the birthday party with all the mothers and the kids there with a cake. She's just like, "Hello."
Yeah.
Oh God.
Mary.
Oh.
Yeah. So. The next thing, I don't think we should talk about too much because it's definitely a mediating pick for me. Because it's such a, I think it's probably my favorite thing that came out in 2019. Also, I didn't really play any games. That's why we're not talking about games this time. Whereas last year I played a fuck ton of games. I don't think I played a single game that came out last year.
Okay.
Yeah. Next year though, we can talk about Last of Us 2 and Doom 2.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I'm sure we'll play both of them somehow.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Watchmen. Like, I can't tell you how much I was ready to fucking hate this show. Like, the trailers are bad, and I'm like, why are they doing this? What even is this? Is this a prequel? Is it a sequel? I don't know what's going on. Turns out, it's like, they've taken Watchmen, and I'm like, they've somehow made a sequel that is good, and manages to take the themes of the novel, and reinterpret them to be about the modern world. And it's so, I don't know how they did it. And I do know how they did it. It's because it's such a great group of different collaborative, like different writers, different directors, all the different actors. They've all come together, and like it's a brilliant work of collaboration, helmed by Damon Lindelof, who's learnt the lessons of Lost, I guess, to make the most narratively satisfying season of TV ever, where it's mystery box, but every single one is open by the end of the season, and inside there is Jeremy Irons doing Jimmy Stewart. It's just like I don't. It's great. Lash her down.
You see the moon there, Mary?
Oh, you mad
that piece of classical music playing in the back.
Yeah, I really love Watchmen, and like maybe it's got some, maybe the final episode's not as good, and there's a couple of weaker elements, but I don't know. I'd like, as a sequel to like probably the best comic book, if we're being honest. It's so good.
Yeah, it's definitely my favourite comic book, that's for sure.
The way I'll explain it quickly is the first 2 episodes, I was like, this is a very good show. I think the first episode with, which you should have seen coming, because if you know anything, because Oklahoma has a song about a character called Judd dying, and then there's Judd who's watching like the all-black version of Oklahoma.
Sure.
And then he turns out to be like this is like a racist, basically, like a KKK member, which is like a great inversion of like he's like a nice good liberal white liberal who's actually like secretly like a massive fucking racist. The show does have that really weird scene where like it's like a police officer gets killed because he couldn't have a gun, which is like the worst thing about the show. Like, I don't think that scene makes sense at all, and like completely goes against the politics of the rest of the show. I don't like that scene at all.
I thought I thought the reason he got killed was a narrative choice because it sets the plot in motion.
Yeah, but
they realised that the cavalry.
But I think the point they're making there is like a really weird one. Was like the police aren't allowed to use their guns anymore. I didn't like that element at all. I thought that was really bad.
Okay.
But everything up else, so you have that, and then episode 1 and 2 are very good, but there's something a bit off. Like it's a bit goofy, and it's a bit like we've done this before. And then it takes episode 3 where you take what's her name? You know what I'm talking about.
Detective Abar.
No. Episode 3. God, what's her name?
Laurie?
Yeah, Laurie. You take Laurie. I wanted to say Silver Spectre, but I didn't really want it because
Silver Spectre
2. There we go. So you take her, and like she's very different. Like you can tell there's been a lot of like the world has like fucking like broke her down. She's like a different character. She's like got the comedian surname, which says everything. But she comes into the world and just like takes the piss out of everything, and it's just like a nihilistic attitude where she's like. She comes into the show as like the audience who have read Watchmen, being like, "Are we really doing this again? Like this is stupid." And then from then on, everything just builds and expands up until the point that you're watching an episode where you're watching a character have someone else's memories, and then you realize what that episode actually is. And like the way it's shot with the spinning around is a bit like confusing at times, but like. The fact it does the Bojack thing of every episode being like focused on a different character. You know, you got
that's like a very common Damon Lindelof thing as well. I mean, watching The Leftovers, there's a couple of episodes in each series where, so each series is well, actually that's not true. So from the first series, it's all primarily focused on Justin Theroux because he's the chief of police in what's the town called, Mapleton, I think.
Whenever you say Justin Theroux, then I'm always gonna imagine that
Sure.
that cowboy.
Sure.
Okay. Did you say that because that was?
Would you agree that a man's attitude goes some ways to how his life goes? Sure. Whatever.
Anyway, you go.
Yeah. But then there will be that one episode that focuses just on the Christopher Eccleston character, and then one episode that just focuses on the Carrie Coon character. And I think he does that extremely well. Like the Tim Blake Nelson standalone one is one of the stronger episodes. And then actually the best episode is probably the Hooded Justice one. Right? Yeah.
Although I really like the Dr. Manhattan episode. I think it's
a good concept
because the
what is it?
A god
walks into a bar.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic premise, and that whole exchange in its entirety between those two is fantastic. But I think my problem with Watchmen is that from the first episode, it felt like it was taking a world that I really, really loved, and it gave it like a sense of complete groundedness, and it was a really hooking mystery. And like you said, it had some very kind of contemporary themes, and it was obviously a statement about the world today. But then as the show went on, it became more and more extravagant and more over the top and kind of drew in more elements. And then it culminated with the last 2 episodes of it being Dr. Manhattan, who looks goofy as fuck, just for the record. Just want to point that out.
The eyes are a bit weird.
Yeah, and then it stops being this kind of, I guess, like compelling story that's so realistic and feels like the world of Watchmen. It is set in the world of Watchmen, but up until that point, it doesn't. It's hard to explain. But by the last 2 episodes, I feel like things have become. There's so many elements being pulled in left and right, and it just kind of feels like it was losing that original mystery of who killed that guy.
Yeah.
And it kind of had that very sort of centralized feel of it being set in this one town. And I just kind of,
I guess,
like I said, I feel like it peaked with the Hooded Justice episode, which was extremely good.
For me, this Fallen Island is not my favourite episode, but I appreciate how everything was brought together at the end. I loved the fact that this was like one of a few shows I was watching weekly. And I think it kind of like, I love weekly TV. And like, just people like theorizing online, like people working out twists like way in advance, you know. Like it's one of those shows that if you not reading something, like people are so smart basically. They're like, oh yeah, Cal's Dr. Manhattan. He's obviously. I was like, how the fuck do they know that? Like he does like one tiny thing, and like people notice.
The real mystery that I want solved is who's Lube Man.
Lube Man's PT, because there's a thing called PTpedia where the character PT, who's like a comic book fan basically, is the character. Does the thing that he does between the chapters of Watchmen, where it's a piece of real world non-fiction by different documents from the world of Watchmen were made available after every episode to do with the episodes, and they'd have pieces of foreshadowing and stuff. The Lube Man, which is like one of the funniest scenes in the show, is actually you actually get the payoff in through this website, which I think is really good. Also, there's the fantastic thing about the Dr. Manhattan dildo, which is called is called Excalibur, which is Excalibur.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, that's such a good, like,
That's very
hidden.
smart, yeah.
It's really good.
It is.
Also,
that's a good episode. Like the episode where she walks into that kind of booth and then tells a story about each of the members of Watchmen, and then it ends with the one about Manhattan.
Yeah,
That's
and like
really good.
I've said this to you before, that I have one criticism of the show, and it's just that it's a sequel to Watchmen. So the world of Watchmen, the show, which is set in 2019, I'm assuming, is a sequel to the 80s that the comic book Watchmen wrote, which is not the same. The only problem is that the real world 80s to our world is like things have happened, and then Watchmen can't really be the same. So the big parallel is 9/11 doesn't happen in the Watchmen universe. Their version of 9/11 is the squid.
Yeah.
But the problem is the squid is a massive government conspiracy and cover-up, whereas in the real world 9/11 isn't. Well, you might say it is, but to a large extent it's regarded that it wasn't. So it's like, and then there's that episode where the white supremacists are like trying to expose this, and you're like, why are they? But they're right. It's like the show's like, fuck you attitude to the white supremacists. Suddenly, like, it has a bit where they're like, actually, they're making some good points. And I'm like, are we really doing this? Like, is this really what the show needs to be doing right now?
Yeah.
And that was like the one episode towards the end of that episode where I was like, I don't think I'm liking this as much. But apart from that, I'm.
Yeah, I think a couple of the weaker aspects of it for me are when they actually, so I watched this over Christmas. And I watched it while also reading the graphic novel, which I just completely sped through. Like, I can't even remember a book that
Was
I
it a
read
graphic novel? Because he's scared to call that comic.
So the graphic novel that I read.
That's fine.
So I read the comic over Christmas, and I just sped through it, and I loved it. And I don't think... I think I'm someone who... well, Harry will know this. I kind of just don't like superheroes at all. So to read something that held my attention all the way to the end, it made me care so much about the characters, was just really, really, really great for me to read, and for me to actually finally have that moment where it's like, superheroes, actually, they are great, but when they're done well, like in Watchmen, like when Alan Moore's doing the writing. Then in the TV show, I feel like they did a couple of them a disservice. So I don't actually entirely believe Laurie's change. I think...
But this is a theme, isn't it? Because like I was having that Michael Corleone thing. Obviously, there's the debate about Luke and the Last Jedi.
Yeah, there
where
is.
you take a character and then just completely change
But I
them.
believe Ozymandias, because the whole thing about Ozymandias in the novel, right, is that he's like... he's a genius, but he's so arrogant, and he's so like... just... You get the impression that he feels like he's overwhelmed with his own kind of wisdom, and it just makes you hate him so much. And I can believe that it would get to the point where, in his age, he would just completely break down and become the Jeremy Irons character that's kind of over the top and just kind of acts his lungs out. I just believe that completely.
Those scenes are they're probably like, the way they're done is the worst of the show. The mystery that unravels in them is like so weird. It's great. Like when you realise he's on a different planet, you're like, okay, sure. How did he get here? It turns out he was like testing himself almost.
You know what? I will give the show credit for one thing. It does get too kind of all over the place by the end of it, but they do tie all their loose ends quite well.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing that's left on it. Well, there of course things like Luke Man, sure.
Yeah, but I don't think there is. It's amazing how it's been done. And also, we got to talk about the music. Because Trent Reznor's guitar score.
Oh my god, the music is great. Yeah.
He's like 90% of the reason the show's as good as it is.
I had forgotten the music in this show.
It's so good. Yeah, I've listened to it a lot. Like the fact that every episode has its own album released based on the music from that episode. Yeah. There's like 9 albums.
Yeah. She's talking about Hong Chow. She's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Hong Chow is in my two favourite. I mean, she's in Bojack and Watchmen, two of my favourite shows of all time, as well as being in like one of the worst films of all time. So yeah, Hong Chow's pretty. She should stick to TV, I think. She's pretty great. Yeah, I really enjoyed her character.
Lady True.
Yeah, Lady True. And her introduction is like so strange with that weird kind of, she's trying to buy the bit of land someone's crashing on, and it's like it's parallels like Superman almost the way he crashed
yeah.
Earth.
But
then
in that scene, you get all you need to know about her. You can see that she loves efficiency and time management, and she like only says the necessary things that she needs to say. You get that.
It is goofy. You just have to accept that someone can be this smart, so that they've invented all this stuff. Which is like the leap you have to make with like sci-fi or like superhero stories sometimes. But
you know the other dumb thing as well that I really hate actually, the way that they just arrest Ozymandias at the end of the show. That's so stupid because that. I mean, we've had this argument as well where it's like, I just feel like it completely shits all over the way the novel ended, where they had to kind of keep it a secret. But now for some reason they can just arrest Ozymandias. Like, what the fuck's out?
Yeah, I think they're not arrested. I think they're arresting him for what he did, but they're not like didn't tell everyone what he did. I think it's more like.
So what are they going to arrest him for if they can't tell anybody what he did?
I mean, her whole thing is bringing in superheroes, right? I don't know. I don't know. It brings some justice to that character, which is like I don't know. There's definitely been like an argument from a lot of people, like people on IMDb giving like 1 star or whatever, being like it ruins the original. And really, I think it's just a reinterpretation of the original text. I think what they did with the Rorschach was really good. I think that like Rorschach is like cathartic. Some of his violence is in Watchmen. He is like a horrible person, and being like Rorschach in the 21st century would be like a white supremacist. So like having like his also, it does a good thing. It does a thing that gives me hope for The Last of Us 2, where it takes an ambiguous ending and makes a sequel to it by being like because obviously Watchmen ends with Rorschach's journal that you've been hearing or reading for the whole thing finally being given. But like, of course, like that fringe publication would convince some people and it wouldn't convince others. So they kind of have it both ways, and I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Also, Robert Redford lied because he said his last film was The Old Man and the Gun, and then he appeared in Avengers Endgame, and he's also in this, or his image is in this. So Robert Redford, you've lied because you've been in 2 more things this year. Anyway,
I think another thing that it does great based on the original source material is making Hooded Justice black, and I think that actually works so well in the confines of the show because it's never something that would have crossed my mind at all. Just because he's not even really a character in the original book. He's just from an older superhero.
I love the dig at like American Crime Story and American or the Ryan Murphy dig, where you see the fake version of like the story, and he looks like fucking he looks like Tommy Robinson, and the American version Richard Spencer. Hooded Justice, like he looks like one of these like young like alt-right guys, and then like seeing the real story behind it, it's just like that's so great. That's such a brilliant episode. Even though like I said, the camera move. I don't know if I agree with the way it's directed, but I think it's really good.
It's it's a really good origin.
What else did we say we wouldn't do the whole thing? We just done the whole thing basically.
Yeah, I feel like what else was I going to say about Watchmen? I don't believe that he's 105. That actor, like he looks like he's 70 or 75 maybe, but no other than that. There's no way that he pass off that old. That annoyed me a little bit as well, actually.
Yeah, I guess when you're telling a story that spans this many decades, you've kind of got to just accept that the character is very old. But Watchmen was pretty good. I think we talked about Watchmen for longer than like most films. Yeah,
I think it's because I'll tell you why that is. It's because Big Little Lies I watched over like summer, I think, or something like that. But this is a lot more recent in my memory, so I have a lot more to say about it. I watched it over Christmas. I was like 3 months ago, maybe now. I definitely like to make Tony and Joey read Watchmen. Maybe even watch the show for. Yeah, do you think? I think Jonathan would love the novel, but I don't know. Do you think Tony would like it? I think he would. I can't see why he wouldn't. I think Tony would like it. Not the Zack Snyder film though. The worst film with the best soundtrack. Yeah, I was surprised by how much. Like, I really enjoyed the book. I'd often go back and just reread old pages just to look at the artistry behind them. The art design is brilliant, and just the chapters with Dr. Manhattan on Mars as well, and the way that they all fit together, the way that he's just telling different stories at different times in his life, and the way that they all kind of just like merge together. Yeah, I think that Dr. Manhattan, the adaptation of that chapter in that episode, I really did like that. Yeah, I guess it is good. There's nothing about Vietnam being the 51st state in the novel, is there? Right? No. That's like a thing they came up with. But that's good. It's of the novel. Yeah, yeah. It's the Blade Runner 2049 being a sequel to the World of Blade Runner. It's that and this, and there's a lot of elements like that. They're really good. All right, we should probably end it there because we've gone on for like 2.5 hours. 2 hours 30. Yeah. God, I'll tell you what. 10 more minutes, right? We could have watched There Will Be Blood this time. God.
That would have been a better use of everyone's time.
Yeah.
All
What are you
right.
doing, Azure, with your life?